Chapter 210. On the second floor of the 7,823rd Sword Tower, a figure sat cross-legged on a cushion on the balcony. His body was surrounded by waves of spirit chi that gathered from afar and surrounded him. The pure spirit chi was not absorbed into the body, but covered the surface of the body. It flowed through the body like waves and was being refined. Sword Aura Protection Secret Technique Level 3. The Sword Aura Protection Secret Technique was obtained by Chu Mu when he killed a disciple of the Qinglan Sword Sect in the 100 Beasts Valley of Qinglan Mountain. At that time, only the first and second levels were available. After Chu Mu cultivated it, the Sword Aura Protection Secret Technique was able to withstand the sharpness of the 100 Refinement Sword. Now he found the Sword Aura Protection Secret Technique Level 3 in the Great Kuin Sword Mansion's Hidden Art Tower and exchanged it for 10,000 credits. He could finally cultivate it. He focused all his attention and cleared all distracting thoughts. He used his mind to guide the innate sword aura to mix with the surrounding spirit chi and converge it on his body, refining the Sword Aura Protection Secret Technique again and again. When all the Sword Aura Protection Secret Technique Level 3 was refined and compressed into innate sword aura, the Sword Aura Protection Secret Technique Level 3 could be considered successful. According to the description, the Sword Aura Protection Secret Technique Level 3 could withstand the attack of a low-grade sword weapon once. If it could be replenished in time, it could withstand a second or even a third low-grade sword weapon's attack. Although there was only one chance, it could prevent injury or even death in certain unavoidable situations. It was also a good way to save one's life. The refinement progress was unusually slow, indicating that it was not easy to cultivate the Sword Aura Protection Secret Technique Level 3. However, Chu Mu was determined to persevere. After 2 hours, Chu Mu stopped moving the innate sword aura. The spirit chi in the outside world slowly dissipated. He opened his eyes, which were as clear as water. Although the Shangyuan sword aura technique is very good among the yellow class techniques, it is still very difficult to move the innate sword aura protection secret technique level 3. Looks like I have to first obtain a Xian rank cultivation method to cultivate. That's the best choice. Chu Mu stood up and thought to himself. Although there was a black class sword aura protection secret technique level, he did not want to cultivate it. Its level was too low. If he cultivated it, he would have to change his cultivation. He left the sword tower and headed in the direction of the scripture pavilion. Astral 9 was very large, at least 5 times larger than the entire outer palace. At first, Chu Mu wandered around aimlessly, but after a while he saw a huge stone tablet. There were carvings on the stone tablet that depicted a topographic map of Astral 9. Various locations were marked out, such as the location of the 100 Affairs Hall, the Scripture Pavilion, and the Sword Comprehension Room. After memorizing the route, Chu Mu headed towards the Scripture Pavilion. The inner palace's hidden art tower was far from being comparable to the outer palace. A huge sword tower stood in front of Chu Mu in the shape of a tower. 5 meters above the ground, there was a plaque on the gate. On the plaque, there were 3 big red words written on it, Training Pavilion. The words seemed to contain some kind of mystery. This hidden art pavilion had a total of 5 floors, and its overall height was more than 50 meters. Perhaps it was because it had been there for a long time, or perhaps it was because it had stored many books, but it naturally carried an aura of books that had experienced the vicissitudes of life, making people want to worship it. In front of the hidden art tower, which was over 50 meters tall, anyone would feel insignificant. Unlike the outer palace, there were many people going in and out of the hidden art tower, making it seem very lively. Chu Mu stood still and took a few glances before stepping into the hidden technique tower's entrance and entering the tower. Rows upon rows of neatly arranged bookshelves appeared in front of him. There were many compartments on the bookshelves, and within each compartment were many books. Beside each book was a brief introduction to the book's contents. The books here were also divided into categories. There were sword aura arts, swordsmanship, movement techniques, secret techniques, and even some miscellaneous travel notes. Chumu's goal was to choose a sword aura art that he liked, so he quickly scanned through the bookshelves and found the section where sword aura arts were categorized. They're all just low-grade, profound-level sword aura arts. He frowned slightly. If you want a higher-grade sword aura art, you'll have to go upstairs, a student said casually as he passed by. Thank you, Chumu said, and walked up the stairs to the second floor without hesitation. There were many students on the second floor, and they were still choosing sword aura arts. Glancing at the bookshelves, they were all mid-grade, profound-level sword aura arts. It seems that the profound-level sword aura arts should be on the third floor. If that's the case, could the profound-level sword aura arts be on the fourth floor? Because the hidden art tower was shaped like a tower, the first floor was the largest and naturally had the most books. The second floor was second, and the third floor had even fewer books. Although Chumu did not go to the fourth floor, he knew that the fourth floor would definitely be smaller than the third floor, and the books collected there would definitely be fewer. Chumu's ideal goal was a profound-level sword aura art. If there were profound-level sword aura arts, it would naturally be better. However, profound-level sword aura arts required too many credits, at least 160,000. For someone like him who only had 40,000 credits, he did not know when he would be able to gather enough credits to exchange. I'll take a look at the sword aura arts on the third floor first, and then go to the fourth floor to take a look. Finally, I'll make my choice based on my satisfaction and needs, Chumu said to himself. Since the beginning of cultivating sword aura arts, Chumu had focused on elemental attributes. Naturally, his first choice was elemental attributes. Elemental attributes could also be called non-elemental attributes. It meant that it did not enhance any swordsmanship or movement skills. It was a balanced cultivation method. Some people said that balance meant weakness, while others believed that balance meant strength. However, whether it was strong or weak still needed to be determined by the individual and the actual situation. For Chumu, although elemental sword aura arts could not enhance the power of other swordsmanships, it would not weaken the power of other swordsmanships either. Moreover, due to its attribute, it would not be easily restrained. Chumu's swordsmanship was not of a single attribute. So far, he had only cultivated wind, cloud, and metal swordsmanships. Regardless of whether he cultivated wind, cloud, or metal swordsmanships, the enhancement of one attribute would naturally weaken the other two. Standing in front of the bookshelf of sword aura arts, Chumu's eyes lit up slightly as he carefully looked through the shelves one by one. Icicle sword aura art, profound, level high grade. 7 levels in total. Focuses on ice elemental innate, sword aura. Enhances ice elemental swordsmanship by 30%. Requires 80,000 credits. Purple, thunder, phaseless art, profound, level high grade. 8 levels in total. Focuses on lightning elemental innate, sword aura. Enhances lightning elemental swordsmanship by 30% and lightning elemental movement skills by 10%. Requires 90,000 credits. As he searched, Chumu's gaze was suddenly attracted by a sword aura art. 9 transformations of heaven origin. Profound, level high grade. 9 levels in total. Focuses on elemental innate, sword aura. Cannot enhance the power of any swordsmanship or movement skills. However, after cultivating to the 9th level, the innate sword aura will be 50% thicker than the sword aura cultivated from sword aura arts of the same level. The recovery speed of innate sword aura will also be 50% faster. Requires 100,000 credits. 100,000. Chumu sucked in a breath of cold air. If the calculation was based on the 1,000 credits that Inner Palace students received every month, then 100,000 credits would take 100 months. That would take more than 8 years. It was too long. 9 transformations of heaven origin will be my first choice if there is no sword aura art that I am more satisfied with on the 4th floor. Chu Mu thought to himself as he walked up the stairs to the 4th floor. The 4th floor was indeed smaller than the 3rd floor. The number of books on the 4th floor had also decreased by more than half. Searching through the bookshelves of sword aura arts, although they were all top-quality Xian rank sword aura arts, Chu Mu didn't find any Yuan-type sword aura arts. Moreover, these top-quality Xian rank sword aura arts required at least 160,000 academic credits. Fine, I'll use the 9 transformations of heaven origin as my goal and try to gather 100,000 credits as soon as possible. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 211. How can I collect 100,000 credits in the shortest time possible? After leaving the Hidden Art Pavilion, Chu Mu returned to his own sword tower and kept thinking along the way. Chu Mu. A voice came from not far away, startling Chu Mu. Turning around to look, Liang Haishan walked over with a smile on his face. So you were here. No wonder I didn't see any movement when I went to your sword tower to look for you. Looking for me? What's the matter? Chu Mu asked. Of course there's something, but it's a good thing. Liang Haishan laughed and said, Let's go. I will take you to a place. Where? Chu Mu asked. To attend a swordsmanship seminar. Liang Haishan explained, You are a new student and have just arrived, so you are not familiar with the inner mansion. I will take you to the seminar. On the one hand, you can exchange swordsmanship experiences with others. On the other hand, you can get to know more people. It will be easier to find partners when you want to do missions or experience in the future. Exchange swordsmanship experiences. Chu Mu thought for a while. Is this swordsmanship seminar an organization like the Heavenly King Palace? No, the nature is completely different. An organization like the Heavenly King Palace is headed by the Palace Master. The others are all subservient to the Palace Master and serve the entire Heavenly King Palace. Liang Haishan shook his head and explained, The swordsmanship seminar is a spontaneous and idle organization. The purpose of the organization is to exchange swordsmanship and cultivation experiences and to discuss and learn from each other. Whether you are willing to participate or not is voluntary. It will not be forced, and you don't have to pay any price. In short, as long as you don't maliciously stir up trouble, you can even listen on the side and not express any opinions. Chu Mu understood after Liang Haishan's explanation. Then let's go, Chu Mu said. He also wanted to know the level of swordsmanship of the Inner Mansion students. Since the swordsmanship seminar was an idle organization, it would not form any restrictions on him. Okay, come with me. Liang Haishan smiled and explained to Chu Mu as he led the way. Swordsmanship seminars are very common in the Inner Mansion, but they have different names. The swordsmanship seminar we're going to is called the Sword Sparring Meeting. The organizer is Senior Brother Sitiko, who possesses the cultivation of Deshang's sword qi in the qi transformation realm. His swordsmanship attainments are exceptional. In the last Inner House Swordsmanship King competition, he ranked in the top 1,000. Swordsmanship King competition? Liang Haishan blurted out another new term, making Chu Mu a little curious. You've just entered the Inner Palace, so there are many things you don't know. The Inner Palace is not like the Outer Palace, where you can read the Inner Palace's rules. Liang Haishan smiled and said, You must know that to us swordsmen, profound sword qi cultivation and powerful sword techniques are all very important. However, the attainment of basic sword techniques is also an indispensable part. If one's attainments in basic swordsmanship were not deep enough, it would be extremely difficult to cultivate more advanced swordsmanship in the future. Therefore, the Sword Mansion will hold the Swordsmanship King competition once every 3 years. In the competition, sword chi and other sword techniques are not allowed. Only basic sword techniques are allowed to compete. Chu Mu suddenly understood, and an uncontrollable strong interest burst out from the bottom of his heart. A swordsmanship competition that only used basic sword techniques was like an eagle soaring in the sky to his heart's content. Speaking of which, the next swordsmanship king competition will begin in half a year. Lian Haishan said, "Don't underestimate the top 1,000. You must know that there are more than 70,000 students in the inner palace. Although not everyone will participate, at least half of them will. To be able to rank in the top 1,000 among tens of thousands of people, one swordsmanship attainment is also very remarkable. Senior brother Sitako is modest and polite. After the sword sparring meeting, if you have any questions about swordsmanship, you can ask him. Senior brother Sitako will naturally guide you." "Okay," Chu Mu nodded. At this time, Chu Mu's mind was attracted by the so-called swordsmanship king competition, temporarily forgetting the idea of collecting credits as soon as possible. Otherwise, he would have definitely asked Lian Haishan. Under Lian Haishan's lead, they passed by one sword tower after another. The sword tower they passed by now was a 3-story sword tower. Chu Mu knew that it was a profound level sword tower. In the inner palace, the sword towers were divided into 4 levels: heaven, earth, profound, and yellow. The yellow level sword tower had 2 floors. The profound level sword tower had 3 floors. The earth level sword tower had 4 floors, and the heaven level sword tower had 5 floors. Along the way, Lian Haishan did not show any signs of stopping. He kept telling Chu Mu all kinds of things about the inner palace. These were things that the outer palace master did not mention before, so that Chu Mu could have a better understanding of the inner palace. Is it possible that Sitako does not live in the profound level sword tower, but in the earth level sword tower? A thought popped up in Chu Mu's mind. The residents' rights of different levels of sword towers represented strength. Being able to live in the earth level sword tower was enough to show that Sitako's strength was very strong. Sure enough, Lian Haishan stopped in front of a 4-story sword tower seal. This is the sword tower where senior brother Sitako lives, the earth level sword tower. The sword sparring meeting is also held in this sword tower. Lian Haishan said as he touched the seal. Not long after, someone appeared from the sword tower and flashed to the seal. "Lian Haishan, so it's you." The person glanced at Chu Mu, but did not care. Instead, he smiled at Lian Haishan and took out a sword token and placed it on the seal. Immediately, a door opened for Lian Haishan and Chu Mu to enter. "Zhou Ting, you're earlier than me again." Lian Haishan smiled and said. He seemed to be very familiar with Zhou Ting. "I'm the 3rd one here. Of course I'm earlier than you." Zhou Ting said. Then he looked at Chu Mu and said, "I don't know you, but you've just entered the Qi transformation realm. Are you a new student?" He is indeed a new student, but don't underestimate him. Not long ago, he defeated Meng Chao in a head-on fight. Also, he was in the top 4 in the 3 natural barriers. He's not simple. Lian Haishan introduced. "So you're the one who defeated Meng Chao." Zhou Ting looked at Chu Mu from head to toe, as if he wanted to see what was different about Chu Mu. However, he was not familiar with Chu Mu, so he did not have a good or bad impression of him. His impression of him was average. Lian Haishan, although such a talented junior brother should be taken care of, this time, Zhuang Tong is also here. He will definitely target you. I'm afraid that Chu Mu will also be affected. Zhuang Tong. Meng Chao frowned. Why is he here again? I don't know. Zhou Ting said. Humph, if he's here, then he's here. He's just a loser. What's there to be afraid of? Lian Haishan snorted coldly. It's hard to say. I heard that he had a fortuitous encounter when he was out on a mission. Not only did his cultivation increase, his sword skills also increased by a lot. As for how much, I don't know, Zhou Ting said. He then looked at Chu Mu. I think it's best if you don't go in for now. Zhuang Tong is not easy to get along with. He might make things difficult for you, and it'll be bad for your future cultivation. Before Chu Mu could say anything, Liang Haishan spoke first. No need. I'm here. Let's see what Zhuang Tong dares to do. Even if his strength has increased, I'm not stagnant. If I can defeat him once, I can defeat him a second time. Do whatever you want. Zhou Ting might be familiar with Liang Haishan, but their relationship had not reached the point where they could talk to each other. Since his advice was useless, he did not continue. Chu Mu, if Zhuang Tong makes things difficult for you later, don't say anything. Leave everything to me. Liang Haishan took a deep breath and said. Chu Mu nodded and did not reply. It was not his style to not fight back when being bullied. However, he didn't need to explain this to others. As soon as they stepped into the sword tower, dozens of people jumped into their sight. The first floor of the Earth-level sword tower was even larger. It was more than 1,000 square meters. Dozens of people sat cross-legged in a circle with a cushion each. One of them seemed to be the center. Chu Mu's gaze also fell on that person. His face was like jade, and his temperament was 70% masculine and 30% gentle. His sword-like eyebrows and three-dimensional facial features could be called a handsome man. Without Liang Haishan's introduction, Chu Mu knew that this person was the owner of this sword tower, Situ Ko. Liang Haishan and Chu Mu's entrance attracted the attention of a small number of people. They turned around and nodded as a greeting, but did not say anything. Liang Haishan and Chu Mu found 2 empty cushions and sat down. The atmosphere made Chu Mu feel like a student sitting in a classroom listening to a teacher's lecture. Situ Ko was slowly explaining some of his understanding of swordsmanship. Chu Mu listened carefully. His understanding of swordsmanship is indeed not bad. If placed on Earth, he would be equivalent to a swordsmanship master. Not long after, Chu Mu judged in his heart. Swordsmanship masters were also divided into different levels. Entry-level swordsmanship master, Desheng master, was the most common classification. In the past, the opponents Chu Mu had encountered were at most at the beginner stage of sword technique master. Back then, Xiao Qianfeng barely counted as such. This Situ Ko's explanation of sword techniques had barely reached the small success stage of sword technique master. This made Chu Mu somewhat surprised. Judging by the situation, his swordsmanship attainment should be at entry-level swordsmanship master. Situ Ko explained for a while more. His gaze fell on Chu Mu's face, and he smiled. It seems that we have a new member of the Sword Conference. Junior brother, please introduce yourself. My name is Chu Mu. I just entered the inner mansion, Chu Mu said. Chu Mu, I think I've heard of this name before. Someone muttered with a thoughtful expression. Isn't that the new student who defeated Meng Chao? Oh, yes, that should be him. You defeated an old student when you just entered the inner mansion. Not bad. It seems that your swordsmanship attainment is not low. Suddenly, someone stood up with a strange smile on his face. It just so happens that I've improved my swordsmanship after returning from my trip. I feel pretty good about myself. Junior brother, why don't we have a spar? Zhuang Tong, if your hands are itchy, I don't mind sparring with you. Liang Haishan stood up and sneered. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qijian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 212. You. Zhuang Tong glanced at Liang Haishan and sneered. I haven't even looked for you, but you jumped out yourself. You were only able to defeat me last time because of luck. This time, both my cultivation and sword arts have improved a lot. You are not my opponent at all. Jumping out is just asking for your own humiliation. The reason why they had a conflict last time was because Liang Haishan brought a new student to the sword conference. Zhuang Tong was very arrogant and liked to tease the new student in the name of giving pointers. Liang Haishan was the one who brought the new student. Being teased by Zhuang Tong naturally made Liang Haishan lose face, so Liang Haishan had to step in. The conflict between the two evolved from a sword art fight to a sword battle arena. The result might have been luck or strength, but Liang Haishan was slightly better and defeated Zhuang Tong with one sword. Zhuang Tong was very arrogant and narrow-minded, so he hated Liang Haishan. This time he had a fortuitous encounter during the mission, and his strength had improved significantly. The first thing he wanted to do when he returned to the sword mansion was to find Liang Haishan and settle the score. Coincidentally, Situ Ko was holding another sword technique conference, so he planned to humiliate Liang Haishan at the sword technique conference. Coincidentally, Liang Haishan brought a new student who seemed to have some background. This way, it would be more fun to tease him. How can a loser talk about bravery? Liang Haishan sneered and his aura fluctuated. He faced Zhuang Tong and said, "Do you dare to fight with me?" The others didn't say anything. They were very clear about the conflict between the two, and they were also very clear about what kind of person Zhuang Tong was. They didn't want to offend someone like Zhuang Tong. "If you want to fight, then fight with pure sword arts to avoid hurting our friendship," Situ Ko said. His status and strength were far above the others, so his words carried a lot of weight. Zhuang Tong didn't dare to have any thoughts. "Okay, let's do as Brother Situ said. We will fight with pure sword arts. If I lose, I will get out of here. If you lose, you will kneel down and kowtow to me 3 times. Zhuang Tong sneered and said. The conditions he proposed made everyone's expression change. Once they did that, they would lose all their dignity. "Okay, everyone here can testify," Liang Haishan said firmly, unable to get off the tiger's back. The first floor of the Earth-level sword tower was very large. A pure sword fight would not result in sword aura, and the impact would not be large. It could be carried out completely within the sword tower. Liang Haishan and Zhuang Tong drew their swords and faced each other from 10 meters away. "This time, I want you to know that you are not my opponent at all," Zhuang Tong shouted in a low voice. He stabbed out with his sword, and an astonishing whistling sound rang out, shaking everyone's eardrums. Once an expert made a move, one would be able to tell whether or not he was an expert. Zhuang Tong's sword strike seemed simple, but its momentum was extraordinary. It was sharp and threatening, showing his outstanding swordsmanship attainments. Chu Mu's expression did not change. Situ Ko nodded slightly, thinking that although Zhuang Tong was not a good person, his swordsmanship had indeed improved a lot. Liang Haishan's expression changed slightly as he hurriedly blocked with his sword. He forcefully deflected Zhuang Tong's sword and took advantage of the momentum to slash out diagonally. There were 12 basic sword techniques on the ancient sword continent, but no one would foolishly follow the 12 basic sword techniques in a real battle. Acting on the spot, changing according to the situation, finding an opening in the opponent's sword to defeat the opponent. It was easier said than done. One needed to practice the basic sword techniques diligently and have a strong foundation to be able to use them as one wished. As if he had expected Liang Haishan's reaction, Zhuang Tong calmly moved his feet to dodge the sword and counterattacked with astonishing speed and sharpness. Liang Haishan hurriedly slashed out with his sword. The 2 swords collided and sparks flew. The ear-piercing sound of metal clashing resounded in the surroundings. Different people would have different styles of the same basic sword technique. For example, Liang Haishan was tall and sturdy, so his physical strength was naturally stronger than the average person. Basic sword techniques emphasize strength, and he could attack and defend freely. Zhuang Tong had a crafty personality, and his basic sword technique style was as crafty as his personality. Sword light flashed and collided. The same sword technique with different styles clashed, and for a moment there was no clear winner. Even without using sword chi, a chi transformation realm swordsman's body had been tempered by spirit chi. So a basic sword technique could display terrifying power. Some powerful Qi transformation realm swordsmen could even rely on their physical strength to drive a basic sword technique to kill a half-step Qi transformation realm swordsman. Countless sparks flew in the air like dazzling fireworks. Lian Haishan and Zhuang Tong displayed their full strength, swinging their swords repeatedly. Sword light flashed. Zhuang Tong's sword was faster and more agile, often stabbing from strange angles. On the other hand, Lian Haishan's attacks were bold and forceful. Every time he seemed to barely be able to block Zhuang Tong's sword and counterattack. It seemed that the two of them were evenly matched. However, Situ Ko and Chu Mu could both see that Lian Haishan was actually at a disadvantage. Zhuang Tong's mastery of basic sword techniques was indeed better than Lian Haishan's, and he gradually grasped the rhythm. In a battle between two swordsmen, whoever grasped the rhythm would win. This was common sense. Lian Haishan is about to lose, Situ Ko whispered. Chu Mu thought to himself. Sure enough, Zhuang Tong once again stabbed out with his sword. Lian Haishan blocked with his sword, but it missed. Zhuang Tong was only feinting, and he quickly retracted his sword. Taking advantage of Lian Haishan's counterattack, Zhuang Tong spun around and appeared beside Lian Haishan, stabbing out with his sword. The tip of the sword landed firmly on Lian Haishan's neck. I've said it before. You were just lucky last time. You're no match for me. Zhuang Tong sneered, unable to hide the smugness in his eyes. He pointed his sword at Lian Haishan and said, Kneel down and kowtow. Lian Haishan clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He gritted his teeth, and his eyes were bloodshot from anger. If he knelt down and kowtowed, his reputation would be ruined. If he didn't, his reputation would be ruined. He was in a dilemma. Situ Ko frowned slightly, as if thinking about something. Chu Mu stood up, immediately attracting everyone's attention. What, you want to make a move and spar with me? Zhuang Tong said with a mocking tone and a mocking expression. How about this? I'll give you a chance. You fight with me. If you can beat me, Lian Haishan won't have to kneel down and I'll roll out of here. If you lose, you and Lian Haishan will have to kneel down and kowtow to me. Sure, Chu Mu said. His tone was neither fast nor slow. He was calm, but it was shocking. Chu Mu, you. Lian Haishan was stunned. Chu Mu nodded and walked to Lian Haishan's side, facing Zhuang Tong. A basic sword battle? He was never afraid. Very good, very courageous. Zhuang Tong sneered, but I won't go easy on you just because you're a new student. You talk too much. Chu Mu said. Zhuang Tong's expression changed. He stabbed his sword at a tricky angle. Chu Mu took a step back and dodged the sword. Zhuang Tong attacked again and again. Every sword was like a poisonous snake spitting out its tongue. It was not fast, and the angle was strange. There was a hissing sound as if the air was being torn apart. Chu Mu did not pull out his sword. He just moved his feet, and often Zhuang Tong's sword missed. Everyone was shocked. Situ Ko frowned. He could not understand the fight in front of him. However, until now, it only showed that Chu Mu's reaction speed was fast, but did not show how good his basic sword skills were. Zhuang Tong suddenly withdrew his sword after each attack missed. His expression was somewhat unsightly. Other than dodging, don't you know how to use your sword? Or are you afraid of embarrassing yourself? Zhuang Tong mocked. Junior brother, you're competing based on sword skills. You'll win based on pure sword skills, not on movement techniques, Situ Ko said. I'm just giving you a chance to use your sword. Since you're not willing, I'll defeat you with one sword, Chu Mu said. Defeat me with one sword? Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? Zhuang Tong laughed. The others had strange expressions. They were stunned and even mocking. This new student was really overestimating himself. He dared to talk about defeating Zhuang Tong with one sword. Situ Ko shook his head slightly. He originally thought that Chu Mu was arrogant, but now he felt that not only was he overestimating himself, but he was also a little arrogant. His impression of Chu Mu plummeted, even if his sword skills were better than Zhuang Tong's. He did not dare to say that he could defeat Zhuang Tong with one sword. "You'll know soon." Chu Mu did not care about the other's reaction. "I'll see how you can defeat me with one sword." Zhuang Tong's face became gloomy. There seemed to be a strange light flashing in his eyes. He suddenly took a step forward and attacked with his sword. The sharp sword light seemed to pierce through the void, and there was a sharp whistling sound that hurt people's eardrums. The sword light was so dazzling that people did not dare to look directly at it. Liang Haishan's expression changed, and he realized that Zhuang Tong had not used his full strength. Chu Mu's vision was not affected at all. When the sword light was about to reach him, he pulled out his sword with lightning speed. Everyone heard the sound of metal clashing, and the scene in front of them was like a picture scroll. Zhuang Tong's sword had stabbed to Chu Mu's side. The sword missed, and Chu Mu's sword tip was firmly pressed against Zhuang Tong's throat. If he used a little more force, it would pierce Zhuang Tong's throat and take his life. "You've lost. Get out," Chu Mu said. Zhuang Tong's pale face became even paler. His pupils dilated and contracted. Cold sweat quickly seeped from his forehead. He looked at the others, hoping that someone would say a few good words for him. But everyone was immersed in the shock of Chu Mu defeating Zhuang Tong with one sword. They did not notice Zhuang Tong's gaze. Even if they did, they would not care. "Get out." Liang Haishan was relieved. He felt like he had drunk a bowl of iced sour plum soup on a hot summer day. Everyone came to their senses. "Senior brother, Situ." Zhuang Tong hurriedly called out. Situ Ko frowned. If Zhuang Tong did not speak, he would not have said anything. But now he was in a difficult position. "Junior brother, can you give me some face this time and let this matter go?" Situ Ko thought for a moment, then finally said to Chu Mu, "I owe you a favor." "I'm only speaking on behalf of someone else," Chu Mu said as he sheathed his sword. "Fine. Since senior brother Situ has spoken, I can't not give you face. But from now on, Zhuang Tong, whether you meet me or Chu Mu, you must make way," Liang Haishan said decisively. "I'll remember," Zhuang Tong said through gritted teeth. He lowered his head and left in a sorry state. Then the atmosphere became lively. Chu Mu became the center of attention. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chijian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 213. With junior brother's attainments in swordsmanship in the King of Swordsmanship competition half a year later, you will definitely get a good ranking. Situ Ko said, "What are the rewards for the King of Swordsmanship competition?" Chu Mu asked curiously. "The top 1,000 rankings will be announced. Only the top 100 will have actual rewards. Although the rewards are not the same each time. They're mostly credits, secret manuals, swords, weapons, pills, elixirs, or spirit stones." Situ Ko laughed. After that, Chu Mu and Liang Haishan left the sword discourse competition because it was over. "Chu Mu, what are you planning to do next?" Liang Haishan asked while walking. "That's right. Is there any way to gather enough academic credits in a short period of time?" Chu Mu finally remembered and hastily asked, "Collect enough credits in a short period of time." Liang Haishan muttered, "Inner house disciples can only get 1,000 credits per month. This is far from enough for us. As far as I know, there are 2 ways to quickly get credits. One is to use spirit stones to exchange. 1 low-grade spirit stone can be exchanged for 10 credits, but there is no way to exchange it in reverse. The second way is to complete missions. Completing a mission can at least earn a few thousand credits. Some can even earn a few 100,000 credits. Spirit stone exchange." Chu Mu shook his head. This wasn't worth it at all. He only had 100 or so low-grade spirit stones. At best, he could only exchange them for 1,000 or so points. Eliminating this method, the only way left was to do missions. I suggest you take missions. Take missions according to your strength. After completing them, you can get at least a few thousand credits. If you do it a few times, you can get tens of thousands of credits. Lian Haishan suggested. The missions are in the Hall of 100 Affairs. Do you want to go take a look? Okay. Chu Mu nodded. Once again, he arrived at the Hall of 100 Affairs. The missions of the Hall of 100 Affairs were all listed on a wall in the hall. This wall had a unique power. Although the mission was presented in text, it was not written. It felt like an LCD panel. Other than Chu Mu and Liang Haishan, there were a dozen other students standing in front of the mission panel, looking carefully at the missions as if they were choosing. Chu Mu looked at it carefully and found that the missions listed on the mission panel were divided into 4 levels of difficulty: easy, medium, difficult, and extremely difficult. There was a huge difference in the credits obtained after completing missions of different difficulty levels. For example, there was a simple mission that Chu Mu was looking at right now. This mission was called Collect Spirit Herbs. The description of the mission was to collect mid-grade spirit herbs, no matter what kind of spirit herbs they were. A mid-grade spirit herb could be exchanged for 1,000 academic credits, while high-grade spirit herb could be exchanged for 5,000 academic credits. It seemed very simple and easy to earn, but one had to know that spirit herbs were not that easy to find. Although it was not very dangerous, it would take a lot of time to go back and forth. It was not worth it to earn less than 10,000 academic credits. The credits obtained from simple missions are generally between 3,000 to 8,000. The good ones can even reach 10,000. Liang Haishan explained as he watched. The credits awarded for completing the medium difficulty missions range from 10,000 to 30,000. As for the hard difficulty missions, the credits awarded for completing them range from 30,000 to 100,000. The credits awarded for the extremely hard missions are more than 100,000. However, the difficulty of these missions is also related to one's strength. Liang Haishan seemed very familiar with the missions. For example, take the simple missions as an example. Look at this mission of killing a one-horned green wolf and harvesting its horn. Generally, one can complete it with a cultivation of the initial Qi transformation realm. This is because the one-horned green wolf strength is not high. It is at the bottom of the low-level demonic beasts. However, if one's cultivation is only at the initial Qi transformation realm, it will be somewhat dangerous. The mid-grade missions require Desheng's cultivation of the Qi transformation realm. The hard missions require a cultivation of the Qi transformation realm. As for the extremely difficult missions, they generally require several people to work together to complete them. Of course, there are some exceptions. For example, some geniuses who can fight across realms can often complete the missions alone. Chu Mu nodded and looked carefully at each mission. His focus fell on the mid-grade missions. The credits obtained from simple missions were too few. Although the credits obtained from hard missions could be obtained, they were extremely difficult. With his current strength, he did not have much confidence in completing them. Only the mid-grade missions were more moderate. I only need to accept 2 mid-grade missions. After completing them, I can obtain at least 40,000 academic credits. At that time, I can exchange them for the 9 revolutions heavenly origin, Chu Mu said inwardly. He began to look for suitable missions in the mid-grade missions area. Although this mission can obtain 30,000 academic credits, it will take at least 4 months. That's too long. I can't do it. This one only needs 2 months. However, it can only obtain 10,000 academic credits. The efficiency is too low. He browsed through them one by one, eliminating them based on reality. It would be great if we could encounter a group mission, Liang Haishan suddenly said. What's a group mission? Chu Mu was a newbie at this time. A group mission is a mission with no difficulty level. Anyone can accept it. Someone explained, after accepting a group mission, the final reward will be based on the individual's harvest. Some people's harvest can exceed 100,000 academic credits, but some people's harvest can't even reach 1,000 academic credits. Some people even lose their lives. Although it's a little dangerous, a group mission is a good mission to obtain a lot of academic credits. It's just that group missions are very rare and only appear occasionally. Liang Haishan added, I've never encountered group missions since entering the inner mansion. It said that there has only been one group mission in the past 10 years. As he spoke, the mission panel suddenly flashed as if it had been refreshed. Everyone took a closer look and found that it was still the same mission as before. Just as they were puzzled, someone pointed at the mission panel and stammered, Red mission. Chumu and the others were shocked when they heard this. They hurriedly looked over and saw that there was an additional mission at the top of the mission panel. This mission was described in blood-red words. Blood-red words. Liang Haishan and the others exclaimed in a low voice. They looked at each other and recalled the legend. Their voices suddenly trembled. This is a group mission. Yes, it's a group mission. Group missions are all presented in blood-red words. A student said with certainty, Are you sure you're not seeing things? Is it really a group mission? Liang Haishan and the others could not remain calm. They were just talking about group missions. Could it be that they were all magpie mouths and group missions appeared as soon as they were mentioned? After several confirmations, everyone was finally sure that this was a group mission. They were overjoyed. Blood Demon Realm. This group mission is to enter the Blood Demon Realm to hunt blood demons and obtain blood demon cores. A one-striped blood demon core can be exchanged for 100 credits, a two-striped blood demon core for 200 credits, a three-striped blood demon core for 300 credits, a four-striped blood demon core for 400 credits, and a five-striped blood demon core for 500 credits. In addition, there are also blood evil stones. Blood essence. A student read out the contents of the group mission. The entrance to the Blood Demon Realm will open tomorrow afternoon. The entrance to the Blood Demon Realm will last for a month. Afternoon! According to the concept of Earthlings, afternoon was between 3 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It is said that the blood demons at the first level of the Blood Demon Realm are all small blood demons. They are equivalent to the Chi transformation realm and can be hunted. I'm going to do this mission. I'm going to do it too. Let's go back and prepare now. Immediately, everyone dispersed and left. Liang Haishan also bid farewell to Chumu and went to prepare for this group mission. 1 month's time to hunt blood demons and obtain blood demon cores. I'm going to do this mission too, Chumu said to himself as he walked towards his own sword tower. When he walked to the front of the sword tower, he saw a student standing in front of the seal of the sword tower with a sword on his back. He was using his fingers to release sword energy to attack the seal. What do you want? Chumu looked at the stranger and asked indifferently, Are you the owner of this sword tower? The other party frowned and asked in return. Chumu nodded and did not answer. He roughly knew the other party's intention because he saw a symbol on the other party's sleeve. It was the symbol of the Heavenly King's palace. It seems that you are the person I'm looking for. Remember, my name is Gu Shiping, a member of the Heavenly King's palace. The other party sneered and said, I heard that you rejected the invitation of the Heavenly King's palace and were unwilling to join them. What makes you dare to reject the invitation of the Heavenly King's palace? What makes you worthy of being invited by the Heavenly King's palace? This has nothing to do with you. Chumu's tone was very cold. He was speechless towards this kind of person who was used to being self-righteous. Some people were just like this. They always had a sense of superiority and were very self-righteous. They felt that they could do whatever they wanted. Of course it has something to do with me. Gu Shiping's expression was a little gloomy. He directly pulled out his sword and pointed it at Chumu. Back then, I had to put in a lot of effort to join the Heavenly King's palace. You, on the other hand, are just a new student. You actually rejected the invitation of the Heavenly King's palace. Chumu was even more speechless. It turned out that he was wrong. The other party did not have a sense of superiority, but rather a sense of inferiority and jealousy. I will pay 40,000 academic credits to enter the sword battle arena. If you win, it will be yours. If you lose, you have to give me 40,000 academic credits. Chumu went straight to the point and said, if you agree, go to the 100 Affair Hall and apply. If you don't, disappear from my sight immediately. 40,000 academic credits. Gu Shiping's breath paused. His aggressive aura weakened a lot because he could not take out 40,000 academic credits right now. Chumu's aura was not weak at all. In fact, it was very strong. He directly pressed on towards Gu Shiping. Fine. Just you wait. Tomorrow I will go to the 100 Affair Hall and apply. Gu Shiping said fiercely after a slight hesitation. He sheathed his sword, glared at Chumu, turned around, and left in large strides. Tomorrow. I won't have the chance tomorrow. Chumu thought to himself. He turned around and walked into the forbidden area. He also had to make some preparations to deal with the group mission to enter the blood demon realm tomorrow to hunt blood demons and ensure a greater harvest. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 214. The space inside the spatial bracelet is 1 cubic meter. There's still some left after putting in more than 100 low-grade spirit stones. There are also 5 meridian recovery elixirs, 7 aura recovery elixirs, and 4 scarlet blood elixirs. I'll take them all. Other than that, I don't need to take anything else to avoid taking up too much space in the spatial bracelet. In the sword tower, Chumu was organizing the things inside the spatial bracelet. He didn't know what a blood demon looked like. He also didn't know how big a blood demon nucleus was. But for convenience, it would be good to clear out some space inside the spatial bracelet. After making the necessary preparations, Chumu went to sleep. The next day, he woke up early to do his usual cultivation. In the afternoon, the seal of the sword tower was activated. It was Lian Haishan. Chumu, let's go together, Lian Haishan said with a smile. Chumu nodded. He held the breeze sword in his left hand and carried a fake sword on his back. Why do you have 2 swords? Lian Haishan asked curiously. Personal habit, Chumu said with a smile. Lian Haishan nodded and didn't ask. Instead, he talked about something else. How much do you know about blood demons? Please enlighten me. I wouldn't dare to enlighten you, but I went to the ancient books yesterday and learned about the blood demon realm and blood demons. The blood demon realm lacks spiritual energy, so you have to pay attention to the use of sword energy. Also, the ancient books say that humans can't stay in the blood demon realm for a long time, or their minds will be affected. Liang Haishan laughed and said, It is said that the blood demon realm is divided into 3 levels. The first level's blood demons are called small blood demons. Their strength is equivalent to us swordsmen in the Qi transformation realm. Of course, blood demons are different from us humans. Their power comes from blood. They absorb blood to increase their strength, which is very evil. It is not easy to kill a blood demon. Their skin is very tough. Even fake swords can't do anything to them. Also, their self-healing ability is very strong. Unless you can hit the blood demon's heart with a sword and destroy it. Otherwise, if they are injured, they will heal quickly. But if they are injured, they will bleed non-stop. Small blood demons should have different levels of strength, right? Chumu recalled the description of 1 or 2 blood demons on the mission. That's right. 1-stripe blood demons are the weakest. Their strength is equivalent to us swordsmen who have entered the Qi transformation realm. 2-stripe blood demons are equivalent to those who have achieved initial success in the Qi transformation realm. 3-stripe blood demons are equivalent to those who have achieved Qi transformation to Shang. 4-stripe blood demons are equivalent to those who have achieved Qi transformation realm. Although the 5-mark blood demons don't have the power of the Qi high realm, They are very powerful in the Qi transformation realm. I think that normal warriors in the peak of the Qi transformation realm are no match for them. In our sword mansion, only the senior brothers on the bronze sword ranking can fight and kill them. Liang Haishan's tone turned solemn. The blood demon's patterns will appear on their foreheads. You can tell at a glance. If you encounter a 5-striped blood demon, run as far as you can. Chu Mu nodded. They chatted as they walked. Soon, they arrived at the location where the entrance to the blood demon realm was about to open. It was located at the foot of a mountain outside the inner mansion. Besides Chu Mu and Liang Haishan, many other people were rushing over from afar. They were extremely fast. Hundreds of people had already arrived. They seemed to be divided into many groups. Let's go. Our group is over there. Liang Haishan pointed ahead and said, We are going to enter the first level of the blood demon realm. It is said that small blood demons don't usually move alone. So, in order to better hunt blood demons, everyone will work together. Liang Haishan, you're here. Chu Mu, let me introduce you. This is Zhang Xiyuan. He is at the peak of the initial success in the Qi transformation realm. This is Lu Yaoming. He is at the initial success in the Qi transformation realm. This is He Zhen. He is also at the initial success in the Qi transformation realm. Liang Haishan introduced to Chu Mu. There were 6 people in total. Including Liang Haishan, there were 7. All of them were at the initial success in the Qi transformation realm. However, some were strong, some were weak. This is Chu Mu. He is a new student. A new student? After staring at Chu Mu for a few breaths of time, Lu Yaoming frowned. He hasn't cultivated a new sword Qi art. At this time, he should be cultivating a new sword Qi art to temper his innate sword Qi and strengthen his foundation. He shouldn't be participating in such a dangerous mission. Liang Haishan, I know that you are a good person and take good care of new students. However, the blood demon realm is not an ordinary place. It is very dangerous. We can't even guarantee our own safety, let alone the safety of a new student, He Jin said. Don't worry. Chu Mu is not weak, Liang Haishan hurriedly said. A new student who has just transformed his sword Qi into innate sword Qi. He hasn't cultivated any profound level sword Qi art yet. No matter how strong he is at most equivalent to an ordinary initial success in the Qi transformation realm. In a place like the blood demon realm, he will be killed if he is not careful. He might even implicate others. Zhang Xiyuan, who was the strongest among them, also said, How about this? You can follow us and increase your knowledge. We will also do our best to ensure your safety. However, you will not have a share of any harvest in the blood demon realm. After you leave the blood demon realm, you will have to pay each of us 3,000 credits. Yes, I think senior brother Zhang Xiyuan's suggestion is very good. Lu Yaoming and the others immediately supported him. You. Liang Haishan's face changed. He was about to burst into anger. Say no more. Chu Mu stopped Liang Haishan from continuing. As for whether or not he would hunt with the others, Chu Mu's attitude was that it was dispensable. In fact, he was even more inclined to act alone. Perhaps it would be more dangerous for him to act alone. However, he would hunt for his own harvest. There was no need to have a conflict over the distribution of the spoils. Forget it. I won't team up with you either. Liang Haishan angrily waved his sleeve and turned to Chu Mu. Let's team up. We can take care of each other. All right. Since he had already said so, Chu Mu could not say anything more. He's dumbfounded. Zhang Xiyuan and the others began to whisper amongst themselves. More and more people arrived. Not only were there students from Astral 9, but there were also students from the other academies. It's him. Chu He, who was in the crowd, swept his gaze over the crowd. When he saw Chu Mu, he was slightly startled. When he took a closer look, he was immediately stunned. With Chu Mu's talent, he should not have been able to enter the inner mansion so quickly. Although he was very surprised, he did not have any intention of coming over to greet him. Time slowly passed. It was already past the hour of the afternoon, but the entrance to the blood demon realm still had not appeared. At this moment, there was a low commotion filled with astonishment. Chu-mu, look! It's senior sister Han Ruoshua. Leon Haishin tugged at Chu-mu's sleeve and spoke in a low voice. His tone was extremely excited, and his expression could not hide the trace of adoration. Chu-mu looked over and saw a graceful figure quickly leap over. She landed not far away and stood still. Her clothes were as white as snow, and there was a white jade belt around her waist that accentuated her slender waist. Her fine black hair flowed down her shoulders, and her tall and curvaceous figure made one's eyes burn with passion. Her pure white and smooth face glowed like white jade. Her delicate facial features complemented her beautiful face, and she was even more beautiful than the meticulously drawn portraits of beauties that were circulating on the internet back on Earth. She's like a snowflake on a lonely cliff, Chu-mu thought to himself. Han Ruoshua's temperament made him think so. The aura emanating from her body was very strong, and there were layers upon layers of fluctuations that were like the turbulent waters of the sea. Countless sharp edges were contained within, but they also contained traces of icy coldness. No one dared to approach within 30 meters of her, even though there were quite a few people who were itching to get closer. What a powerful sword chi cultivation! Compared to her appearance and figure, Chu-mu was more surprised by her sword chi cultivation. It was at least at the level of perfection of the chi transformation realm. Senior Han Ruoshua is also from Astral 9. 3 years ago, she entered the inner house. 2 years ago, she challenged the right to live in the heaven-level sword tower. A year ago, she successfully challenged an expert on the bronze sword ranking. Leon Haishin spoke in an excited tone as he looked at Han Ruoshua with reverence. Senior Han lives in the 5th heaven-level sword tower and is ranked 53rd on the bronze sword ranking. Bronze sword ranking. Iron sword ranking. Chu-mu could not help but connect the two. The outer house has the iron sword ranking, the inner house has the bronze sword ranking, and it is said that the king's palace has the silver sword ranking. Each ranking only has 100 places. Leon Haishin explained, if the outer house wants to be on the iron sword ranking, you need to challenge the small sword tower, but the inner house does not. It is said that the initial ranking of the bronze sword ranking is determined through various tests and battles. In the future, if you want to be on the bronze sword ranking, you must apply for a challenge from the headquarters of the Hall of 100 Affairs. After you pass, you can challenge people on the bronze sword ranking. However, in order to avoid endless entanglements, there is a rule that if you want to challenge the bronze sword ranking, you must first have the right to live in the heaven-level sword tower, and you must consecutively defeat 10 students of the heaven-level sword tower. Each of the 10 inner houses had 100 heaven-level sword towers. Hearing that there were so many conditions to challenge the bronze sword ranking, Chu-mu could not help but be surprised. Other than a ranking, are there any other benefits? Asked Chu-mu. If it was only a title, then to him, it wasn't something he could do without. Of course there are benefits. The people on the bronze sword ranking get more credits every month. The higher the ranking, the more credits. In addition, you can also get a certain amount of spirit stones every month and have all kinds of priority. All in all, if you have the strength to be on the ranking, it's best to challenge it. Once you are on the ranking, you will be more valued. Leon Haishin said quickly and then said mysteriously, do you know what my dream is? What? Chu-mu asked casually. One day, to be able to be on the bronze sword ranking, even if it's the last place, Leon Haishin said, his tone full of yearning and encouragement. At this time, in an open space not far from the crowd, a strong aura suddenly spread out and permeated the surroundings. The air vibrated, and a wave-like roar spread out in all directions. Traces of blood-red aura appeared out of nowhere and spread out. Everyone's attention was immediately attracted. It's about to appear. The entrance to the blood demon territory. One by one, they held their breaths and looked slightly excited. More and more blood-red aura spread out and became more and more intense. Finally, these blood-red auras intertwined and condensed together, as if they were worshipping some kind of strange, chanting sound. There seemed to be a force in the void that summoned the ancient gate from the distant void. A blood-red vortex appeared and quickly expanded until it was 5 meters in diameter. The entire blood-red vortex was spinning crazily and making whistling noises. The edges of the vortex were blood-red, and the color gradually deepened toward the center. The center was black, so black that it made people's hearts palpitate. Waves of strange aura were transmitted from the vortex and surged forward, making people shudder as if they had been doused with ice water. They seemed to hear the roars of the blood demon. What was strange was that the sand and stones around the vortex did not move and were not affected at all, as if the vortex was just an illusion. The entrance to the blood demon territory has appeared. Let's go. As soon as someone finished speaking, Han Ruoshua turned into a streak of light and dived into the blood-red vortex like a snow-white rainbow. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chijian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 215. The sky of the blood demon territory seemed to be very low, as if it could press down at any time. The blood-red clouds were surging, making people feel extremely depressed. Chu Mu and Liang Haishan stood side by side on the ground of the first level of the blood demon territory, looking into the distance. The ground was uneven, and the soil was dark red, as if it had been soaked in countless amounts of blood. It exuded an astonishing sense of vicissitudes and sadness. In the distance, the shadow of a mountain stood on the ground, full of mystery, making people want to explore it. The various sceneries and auras could easily affect one's senses. The blood demon territory was also one of the virtual realms, similar to the blue orchid virtual realm that Chumu had once entered. Where are we going next? Liang Haishan looked around, somewhat at a loss for a moment. Neither he nor Chumu had ever entered the blood demon territory. Their understanding of it was only from the descriptions in the ancient books. Now that they were in the blood demon territory, they were affected by everything they saw and felt. For a moment, they did not know what to do. Our purpose is to find and kill the young blood demons. Chumu said. Compared to Liang Haishan, he was more determined and clear-minded. His powerful soul power and the primary level of sword aura allowed him to eliminate all kinds of negative influences easily. Sensing the auras around him, Chu Mu's eyes flickered vaguely. He suddenly turned around and looked to the left. Let's go. Liang Haishan, who had no idea what to do, hurriedly followed. After all, the blood demon territory was a place where blood demons lived. It was not suitable for human beings. Staying in such a place for a long time would affect one's mind and emotions. Like Liang Haishan, many people who had just entered the blood demon territory were affected. For a moment, they were somewhat confused and depressed. As soon as Han Ruoshua appeared in the blood demon territory, her beautiful eyes were glittering with sharpness. The aura all over her body gathered like a sword. If Chumu saw her now, he would be surprised to find that Han Ruoshua had also comprehended sword aura and was not inferior to him. I can smell fresh blood. Another human has entered our territory. Little ones, follow me and enjoy the delicious food. Several thousand swordsmen entered the blood demon realm one after another. This foreign aura immediately alarmed the small blood demons in the blood demon realm. Many small blood demons woke up from their deep slumber and let out cheerful shrieks. It was as if a bloody feast was about to begin. There are 2 humans over there. What an exuberant blood chi. If I suck their blood, I'll definitely become more powerful. At the same time as the ear-piercing screams rang out, several red figures quickly flew over from the front as fast as lightning. "It's the blood demon." Liang Haishan was shocked. He immediately drew his sword and slashed out a few Xiantian sword qi. Compared to Liang Haishan, Chu Mu was very calm. He had noticed the 3 small blood demons the moment they appeared. "Damned human, how dare he attack us? Let's suck his blood dry first." A small blood demon was struck by Liang Haishan's sword aura. Under the explosion of the sword aura, it was sent flying backward and tumbled a few times in the air. The wounds on its body healed in the blink of an eye. It was incomparably furious and pounced toward Liang Haishan again. "Humph! So it's just a one-stripe blood demon." Liang Haishan also calmed down. A one-stripe blood demon strength was equivalent to the initial stage of qi transformation. With his initial stage of qi transformation cultivation, there was nothing to be afraid of. The small blood demon had a pair of small wings on its back and was extremely fast. It pounced from 3 directions, 2 toward Liang Haishan and 1 toward Chu Mu. Chu Mu stood there motionlessly as if he was scared silly. That small blood demon was extremely happy. It loved such silly delicacies the most. It opened its sharp claws and mouth with sharp fangs, about to bite Chu Mu's neck. Suddenly there was a clanging sound. A faint green sword light remained in the air. The small blood demon was instantly sent flying. A large amount of blood spurted out from the left side of its chest, where its heart was like an arrow. It landed on the ground with a bang. It struggled on the ground and let out a shrill howl. Its sharp claws shattered the stones on the ground. A strange scene appeared. Like a leaking balloon, as the blood spurted out, the small blood demon gradually shriveled up. In the end, only a piece of skin was left on the ground. Compared to Chu Mu's clean and efficient one-sword kill, Liang Haishan's hands and feet were tied. Although their overall strength was not as good as Liang Haishan's, they were fast and could not dodge nimbly. Most importantly, after being sent flying by Liang Haishan's sword, their wounds would heal in the blink of an eye, and they would pounce again. Their attacks were fierce and fearless. Chu Mu drew his sword and pierced the heart of a small blood demon in the left side of its chest. The innate sword qi gathered at the tip of the sword exploded and shattered the small blood demon's heart. The small blood demon was sent flying with blood spurting out. When it landed on the ground, it shriveled up and died without even struggling. The pressure on Liang Haishan was greatly reduced. With a few swoosh, 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 he enveloped the last small blood demon. The sword pierced through the small blood demon's left chest and came out from its back. In a flash, Chu Mu appeared beside the small blood demon that had already died. With a flick of his sword, he tore the small blood demon apart. A blood-red core the size of a longan was located on its head. Chu Mu picked it up and placed it in his hand. This was the blood demon core. There was a pattern on it. Liang Haishan was shocked. Normal people would be more or less affected when they entered this place for the first time. It would definitely be difficult for them to kill monsters like the small blood demons with one strike. Take him as an example. In terms of overall strength, he was obviously stronger than these 3 small blood demons. However, in a real battle, he still needed some time to adapt and find the rhythm of the battle with the small blood demons. Only then would he be able to win. However, Chu Mu was different. He immediately adapted and grasped the rhythm of the battle. Killing the small blood demons with one strike was a huge blow to Liang Haishan. The 3 small blood demons each had 3 one-striped blood demon cores. 2 of them died under Chu Mu's sword, and 1 died under Liang Haishan's sword. In the end, 2 blood demon cores were allocated to Chu Mu and 1 to Liang Haishan. This was proposed by Liang Haishan himself. Chu Mu had no objection to this. Liang Haishan's eyes widened as he stared at Chu Mu's left wrist. He exclaimed, "You actually have a space bracelet." Chu Mu nodded. He felt that he now possessed a certain level of strength. He no longer needed to carry the space bracelet around his chest like before. It was very inconvenient when he wanted to store things. It was much more convenient to wear it on his wrist. It's really incredible. Normal people don't have space bracelets. Liang Haishan exhaled heavily. His face was full of envy. There are more than 70,000 students in the entire inner house. I estimate that less than 5,000 people have space bracelets. Although this thing can also be exchanged with credits, it said that it costs more than 1 million credits. 1 million credits. Chumu was shocked. Humans, delicious, delicious blood. Kill these blood demons. The first level of the blood demon territory covered a very large area. After several thousand people entered and scattered, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. It was not easy to meet up. Human swordsmen hunted blood demons for their blood demon cores. In turn, blood demons treated human swordsmen as delicacies, absorbing their blood to increase their own strength. This was a process of hunting and counter-hunting. In the first level of the blood demon territory, as more and more small blood demons appeared, death and slaughter occurred everywhere. It was even possible to see some small blood demons fighting to the death with each other. They were fighting to see who would be the first to absorb the blood of the humans they had crippled. The sword light condensed into a line and pierced through the void. It was as fast as lightning, and the small blood demon could not react in time. This small blood demon died under Chu Mu's sword once again. Its blood demon core became Chu Mu's spoils of war. This was the 10th small blood demon that Chu Mu had killed since entering the blood demon territory. There was an obvious difference from the first time. The first time he had killed the little blood demon, although he had also pierced through the little blood demon's heart. The little blood demon had struggled for a long time before dying. However, now that the sword had pierced through the little blood demon's heart, the sword chi had entered the little blood demon's heart and crushed it. The little blood demon had died before it could even let out a scream. In Liang Haishan's eyes, Chu Mu's improvement made him extremely envious. You're really abnormal. You can even accurately pierce through the heart of a two-striped small blood demon. It's a one-hit kill. Liang Haishan sighed. A two-striped small blood demon was equivalent to a swordsman who had achieved initial success in chi forming. Moreover, their vitality was extremely astonishing. Although they were not strong enough, their speed was astonishing. Moreover, they had a pair of small wings, so their reactions were extremely agile. Even Liang Haishan would have to spend a lot of time to kill a two-striped small blood demon. However, Chu Mu could kill it with one strike. From this point of view, Chu Mu's true strength should be above Liang Haishan's. Even Liang Haishan could not block Chu Mu's sword. In fact, Liang Haishan had overestimated Chu Mu. Chu Mu's true strength was indeed higher than Liang Haishan's. However, Chu Mu could not kill Liang Haishan with one strike like he had killed the two-striped small blood demon. Humans were more intelligent than small blood demons, especially swordsmen who had mastered innate sword chi and various swordsmanship. Coupled with actual combat experience, they could unleash astonishing strength and become even more unpredictable. Even if they used their strongest trump card, the prison-breaking sword, they would need some time to accumulate power. Experts would often seize the moment to counterattack. Small blood demons relied on their own strength. They did not have the sword chi of human swordsmen. In addition, although they were fast and agile, they were relatively fixed. Chu Mu's soul power was many times stronger than that of ordinary people. His sword vision was also near perfection. He could easily see through the small blood demon's movements and make the most accurate judgment. That was why he could kill it with one strike. However, Chu Mu would not tell Liang Haishan these things. There were two clear lines on the two-striped blood demon core. It was slightly larger than a one-striped blood demon core. The blood chi fluctuations contained inside were much stronger. Perhaps swordsmen who cultivate blood elemental sword chi can use this kind of blood demon core. Chumu thought to himself as he put the blood demon core into his space bracelet. Liang Haishin was not as convenient as Chumu. He could only put the blood demon core into a bag that he had prepared beforehand and carried it on his back. Chumu's space bracelet only had 1 cubic meter of space. More than 100 spirit stones took up a portion of the space. The remaining space was to store the blood demon cores he had hunted. There was no extra space for him to lend to Liang Haishin. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 216. Han Ruashua let out a fierce roar. Her sword was like a dragon, and the condensed, icy sword light pierced through the air, creating a straight vacuum. A terrifying sharpness condensed. Before the sword arrived, the sharpness had already pierced through the left chest of a 4-striped blood demon and rushed into its heart. Her sword chi cultivation base, coupled with other factors, gave Han Ruashua terrifying strength. Killing 4-striped blood demons was as easy as chopping vegetables. Unless it was a 5-striped blood demon, it would be difficult to find anyone in the first level of the blood demon realm who could resist her sword. Han Ruashua picked up the 4-striped blood demon core and stored it in her spatial wristband. She looked forward, her beautiful eyes flashing with a sharp light that seemed to pierce through the void. With a whoosh, Han Ruashua turned into a snow-white rainbow and tore through the air. The aura she emitted was extremely cold and sharp, causing many 1-striped and 2-striped blood demons to hide in fear. Although they were fierce, it depended on their opponent. For such a terrifying existence, whose aura alone was enough to suppress them to the point of not daring to move, they would only be sending themselves to their deaths. The sound of flesh being torn apart rang out, causing everyone's hair to stand on end. Blood spurted out and splashed across the dark red ground. Corpses were strewn all over the ground. Damned monster, don't come any closer. A swordsman fell to the ground, blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. His face was filled with fear as he retreated. Even his sword had fallen to the side. His face was pale, his pupils dilated, and his eyes were bloodshot. Originally, those who could enter the inner mansion of the sword mansion were not ordinary swordsmen. Whether it was in terms of talent or intelligence, they were superior to ordinary people. However, the blood demon realm was a very strange place. The gloomy and oppressive sky and the strange aura in the air constantly influenced everyone. If they were in a state of high spirits, it would be fine. As a swordsman with a strong will, after the initial discomfort, they would be able to resist and not be affected. However, once they were injured, weakened, or affected by various negative states, the blood demon realm's influence on a swordsman's will would become obvious, and they would eventually succumb. Although many people knew about this from ancient books and so on, everyone had confidence in their own willpower. They felt that they could maintain their original state of mind and not be affected. Therefore, before entering, no one would talk about this point. Only those who had entered the blood demon realm personally knew how terrifying it was. This swordsman's will had been taken away, and fear had taken over his heart. Kik, human blood is really delicious. An ear-piercing and terrifying voice sounded. A tall blood-red figure walked step by step towards the terrified swordsman. There was blood dripping from its sharp claws, and it licked it with its scarlet tongue. The strange sound it made caused the swordsman to tremble uncontrollably and his hair to stand on end. "If I suck your blood dry, my power will increase again," the tall blood demon said. Its figure flashed and appeared in front of the swordsman. Its sharp claws slashed down, and blood splattered everywhere. "Die!" Liang Haishin roared and slashed out with his sword, sending the 2-striped blood demon flying. Then he took a step forward like an arrow, condensing innate sword chi on his sword and thrusting it at the 2-striped blood demon. The little blood demon's reaction was extremely fast. He flapped the wings on his back and dodged to the side. Liang Haishin's sword only pierced the little blood demon's arm. Blood splattered everywhere. However, such an injury could not affect the little blood demon much. It would only enrage it. With a terrifying and sharp cry, the little blood demon drew an arc in the air and pounced. On the other side, 3 blood demons charged towards Chu-Mu from the left, right, and back respectively. The sharpness of their claws was comparable to pseudo-swords, while the fangs they revealed from their mouths were comparable to low-rank swords. Chu-Mu stood still calmly, but the fingers on his right hand were gently moving, as if he was plucking the strings of a zither. No matter if it was the small blood demons pouncing from the left, right, or behind him, even if he didn't see them with his own eyes, Chu-Mu could still feel their trajectory and angle. He could even feel where their claws and fangs would strike from. This feeling was very helpful to Chu-Mu. The 3 blood demons rushed into a 3-meter radius around Chu-Mu, and their speed suddenly increased. Chu-Mu's calm eyes shone with sharpness. His right hand grabbed the hilt of the clear-wind sword like lightning, and a bright green light streaked across the sky like a waterfall. The green waterfall did not disappear. Instead, green cold stars appeared on the left, right, and back of the sword light. They were the result of merging a wisp of innate sword chi into the condensed sword light. They were extremely sharp. A shocking scene appeared. The 3 little blood demons that were flying over did not seem to see the 3 cold blue stars. They even seemed to be moving their hearts to meet the 3 cold blue stars. Lian Haishin, who had spent some time killing the 2-striped blood demon, turned around and saw this scene. He immediately opened his mouth wide and muttered this again. What a monster! Puff! 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 3 sounds rang out at the same time as the 3 one-striped blood demons were instantly sent flying backward. A tiny finger-sized hole had appeared on the left side of their chests, from which blood spurted out like arrows. Their hearts were also pierced through and minced by the wisp of sword energy. The 3 one-striped blood demons were easily killed by Chu-Mu's sword. Lian Haishin felt that teaming up with Chu-Mu was a very bad decision. He was simply looking for all kinds of blows. The 3-meter radius has become your forbidden zone, Lian Haishin said with a bitter smile. Chu-Mu was silent. This was the result of killing dozens of blood demons after he entered the blood demon realm. To kill this kind of blood demon, it was usually best to kill it with a single strike. If he could not kill it with a single strike, it would be even worse if he injured the blood demon. That would enrage the blood demon and make it even harder to deal with. Chu-Mu, on the other hand, usually killed dozens of blood demons with a single strike. After killing dozens of blood demons, the 3-meter radius had really become a forbidden zone. The length of a human's arm and sword would not exceed 2 meters. However, this had to take into account the speed of the blood demons, the sword light, the condensed sword chi, and so on. As a result, if a blood demon rushed into the 3-meter radius of Chu-Mu's forbidden zone, it would immediately be pierced through the left side of its chest by Chu-Mu's sword, crushing its heart and killing it. The blood demon realm is a good place, Chu-Mu said softly. In this place, as long as you can stay true to yourself and train your swordsmanship with these blood demons, your swordsmanship will definitely improve significantly. Lian Haishin also nodded. The spiritual energy in the blood demon realm was scarce, which was not conducive to the recovery of a swordsman's sword chi. Therefore, in this place, it was best not to use any killer moves unless necessary, because killer moves often consumed a lot of sword chi. In a situation where one did not use their killing moves, the mastery of sword arts would become extremely important. The importance of various reactions, combat experience, and so on would also be magnified. How to unleash the sword's prowess to the greatest extent with the lowest depletion of one's body would become an important point. After killing so many blood demons, Chu-Mu's swordsmanship had finally improved again, forming a zone that was similar to a forbidden zone. In this zone, unless the speed of the blood demons exceeded the limit that Chu-Mu could capture, they would be intercepted and attacked by Chu-Mu. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chijian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 217. A sharp sword light pierced the heart of a one-mark blood demon. The blood demon flew backward and let out a shrill howl. Chu-Mu, what do you think of my sword move? Lian Haishan asked as he sheathed his sword and looked at Chu-Mu. You've improved, but it's not enough. Chu-Mu said calmly, when you stabbed your sword just now, your arm trembled, causing the stability and accuracy of your sword to deviate. The sword light is not condensed enough, and the sword energy attached to it did not crush the blood demon's heart in an instant. You can't really kill it with one strike. Swordsmen's battles were very straightforward and focused on efficiency. Even the most magnificent sword moves pursued the effect of killing the target better. Therefore, it was best to kill with one strike. Lian Haishan listened attentively and firmly remembered every word Chu-Mu said. Chu-Mu's swordsmanship attainment was obviously much higher than Lian Haishan's. Since the sword technique meeting, Lian Haishan had been thinking about whether to ask Chu-Mu for advice on swordsmanship. However, he was restrained by his status. No matter what, Chu-Mu was only a new student. In terms of seniority, he was only his junior brother. Lian Haishan could not bring himself to ask for advice from his junior brother. However, after being shocked many times, Lian Haishan put aside all his concerns and finally asked for advice from Chu-Mu. Chu-Mu did not hide anything and tried his best to guide him. After Lian Haishan tried out Chu-Mu's guidance on how to exert force, use the sword, and so on, he found that the power of his sword had obviously improved a lot. This made him feel even more humble. He even regretted not asking for advice from Chu-Mu earlier. What was the use of boasting? It could not improve his strength. While Lian Haishan was improving, Chu-Mu was also improving. His improvement was even more obvious than Lian Haishan's. Chu-Mu was able to comprehend and improve his swordsmanship attainment to the level of a swordsmanship grandmaster because he walked the path of the sword as a weapon, and the swordsmanship is a killing technique. As such, if he wanted to improve his swordsmanship attainments again, killing was the most direct way. However, after the first swordsman who took this path on Earth broke through to the Master Realm, there were few who could match him. Moreover, they had entered a peaceful era where law and discipline were very important. There were not many opportunities to kill people. The most important thing was that the guru knew the price he had to pay for taking this path. In order to avoid the appearance of a homicidal maniac, he did not spread out the method for further improvement. Instead, he was buried with his death. Previously, Chu-Mu did not understand this, which was why he had been practicing his basic swordsmanship diligently every day, hoping that his swordsmanship attainments would improve again. However, ever since he had broken through to the sword arts grandmaster realm, he had not improved much. However, even if Chu-Mu knew that killing was the most direct way to improve, he wouldn't kill innocent civilians in order to improve his swordsmanship attainments. That would go against his principles. If a swordsman went against his principles, even if he became stronger, he would eventually go astray and would not have a good ending. It had to be said that entering the blood demon realm was a very correct decision on Chu-Mu's part. Even if he did not obtain many blood demon cores in the end, just understanding how to improve his swordsmanship attainments in the most direct way was already a huge gain. As for the challenge in the small sword pagoda in the outer mansion, although he kept killing, it was ultimately an illusion. No matter how realistic it was, an illusion was still an illusion. I wonder how much my swordsmanship attainments will improve after a month in the blood demon realm. Chu-Mu thought to himself, if the sword arts grandmaster realm was divided into the beginner level, Deshang, and the consummate level, then Chu-Mu's swordsmanship attainments were now close to the beginner level. At this stage, all kinds of knowledge were still in a state of blurring and gradually becoming clear. After Lian Haishan dug out the blood demon cores, the two of them continued to move forward. Chu-Mu, look. What's that? Lian Haishan suddenly pointed to the front, where a tall and sturdy figure was rushing towards them with quick steps. Chumu narrowed his eyes. His eyesight was better than Lian Haishan's. It looks a bit like a blood demon. Chumu said softly. He was not very sure. Indeed, the tall and strong figure was somewhat blurry in Lian Haishan's eyes, but in Chumu's eyes it was quite clear. It had dark red skin, and its appearance was 70% similar to the small blood demons they had killed earlier. However, it had a strong and full body, which was completely different from the small blood demons that were less than 2 meters tall and as thin as a match. Blood demon? Impossible. How can a blood demon be so tall? Lian Haishan could not believe it. At this time, the tall figure was even closer. Even Lian Haishan could see the figure's appearance clearly. His face immediately changed. Chumu's eyes narrowed into slits. A cold light swirled in his eyes as he stared at the lines on the tall figure's forehead. There were 4 lines. This situation meant that this was a 4-lined blood demon. Even if it was not a blood demon, it was at least inextricably linked to one. Mutated blood demon. Lian Haishan's face changed greatly. He suddenly remembered the records in the ancient records. The ancient records said that the probability of mutated blood demons appearing was extremely low. The description of mutated blood demons was also very short. Therefore, Lian Haishan did not pay too much attention to it. A 4-lined mutated blood demon is even more powerful than someone in the perfected Qi transformation realm. We're no match for it. Let's go. Without hesitation, Chumu and Lian Haishan quickly turned around and used their movement techniques to fly away. What is a mutated blood demon? Chumu asked as he turned and ran. I'm not sure either. In short, it is a type of mutated blood demon. The probability of it appearing is very low, but once it mutates, it gains abilities that ordinary blood demons do not have. Overall, it is stronger than ordinary blood demons. A 1-lined, mutated blood demon has the strength of an ordinary 2-lined blood demon. Lian Haishan hurriedly explained, this mutated blood demon has 4 lines on its forehead. It has the strength of an ordinary 5-lined mutated blood demon. Ordinary cultivators in the perfected Qi transformation realm are no match for it. Humans, delicious fresh blood. The tall blood demon opened its mouth and let out waves of creepy laughter. The small wings on its back flapped fiercely. Although it could not fly like the other small blood demons, its speed was doubled. With a whoosh, it turned into a blood-colored bolt of lightning and charged toward Chumu and Lian Haishan. Not only is this mutated blood demon faster than the small blood demons we killed before, but its strength is also very prominent. Its overall strength is too strong. Even the prison-breaking sword might not be able to kill it. The strength of Chumu's soul made him more sensitive to auras. The aura emitted by this tall blood demon was like a tsunami. It was extremely vast and terrifying, as if it was going to drown people. It was difficult to remain calm in front of it. Under the impact of that terrifying aura, people with weak willpower would directly go soft, let alone fight. The creepy laughter behind them kept coming, and it was getting closer and closer. Chumu and Lian Haishan simultaneously slashed out several Xiantian sword chi with their hands. The Xiantian sword chi was extremely fast, and the mutated blood demon was charging at them at high speed. It did not dodge at all, or perhaps it thought that there was no need to dodge. The Xiantian sword chi shattered like whips hitting leather, but the mutated blood demon was not damaged at all. Realizing this, Chumu's heart sank. He was very clear about the sharpness of the Xiantian sword chi. Although it was not as good as the direct attack of a low-grade sword, it was still very shocking. If the Xiantian sword chi did not cause any damage, then even a low-grade sword would not be able to cause any obvious damage. The blood demon was a terrifying and evil creature that could not be killed without destroying its heart. Chu-Mu, it's almost catching up. Liang Haishan's expression was very ugly. This mutated blood demon was too fast. It was rapidly closing the distance between them and was less than 100 meters. Split up, Chu-Mu said without hesitation. Liang Haishan was also very decisive. The two of them immediately adjusted their directions and dashed to the left and right, increasing their speed. At this time, there was no need to conserve their sword chi, although the spirit energy here was scarce and difficult to recover. If they did not use their movement skills with all their might, they would be caught up by the mutated blood demon. At that time, only death would await them. It seemed that the mutated blood demon did not expect Chu-Mu and Liang Haishan to split up. It was slightly startled and slowed down a lot. It looked left and right as if it was making a choice. The blood chi here is purer. After 3 breaths, the mutated blood demon made a choice and chased after Chu-Mu. Its reason was that Chu-Mu's blood chi was purer and more attractive to it. The reason why Chu-Mu's blood chi was purer than Liang Haishan's was that he had obtained external sword chi after breaking through to the Grandmaster swordsmanship level. His body had been nourished by external sword chi for a long time. He did not expect that this small benefit would become the reason why he was being chased by this terrifying, mutated blood demon. It's not chasing. Liang Haishan did not feel the pressure behind him. When he looked back, there was no one behind him. He knew that the mutated blood demon had gone after Chu-Mu. I hope you can get rid of that mutated blood demon, Liang Haishan said. No matter what, I owe you a favor. If I have the chance in the future, I will definitely pay you back. It dares to chase after me. Chu-Mu cursed inwardly. He merged 40% of the wind essence into the flashing wind body art and ran at full speed. He was so fast that he was like a gust of wind, rolling up the sand and stones on the ground. The small wings on the back of the mutated blood demon flapped very fiercely, making dense flapping noises. Its speed increased again, and its running legs almost turned into dark red wheels rolling. Wherever it passed, it left footprints on the ground and shattered the sand and stones. However, Chu-Mu used his body art with all his strength, and the distance between them was widened little by little. Human, stop right there. It roared as it chased after Chu-Mu. Its terrifying and ferocious aura surged like a tide. Chu-Mu ignored it and kept running. The mutated blood demon was incomparably furious. It opened its mouth, and a bloody light condensed. In an instant, it turned into a blood-colored ball of light the size of a human head and shot out at lightning speed. The whistling sound made Chu-Mu's scalp tingle. He did not even look back as he used the phantom steps. The phantom was shattered by the blood-colored ball of light and exploded on the ground. Gravel flew everywhere. An explosion created a 10-meter deep pit. The explosion caused a strong airflow impact. It was like a rolling wave, forming a gust of wind. With the help of the gust of wind formed by the surging airflow, Chu-Mu's speed increased to another level. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 218. On the vast dark red earth, 2 figures were flying like lightning, one in front and one behind. They were less than 100 meters apart. The mutated blood demon's endurance shocked Chu-Mu, and its perseverance made Chu-Mu feel helpless. It kept chasing, vowing to catch up with Chu-Mu and suck Chu-Mu's blood dry. Chu-Mu had already forgotten how far he had run and how long he had been running. There wasn't much Xiantian sword chi left in his dantian, and waves of exhaustion spread through his body like water. He wished he could just stop and lie down on the ground and have a good rest. Because he had been using the wind mentality for a long time, his mind was also filled with exhaustion. Chu-Mu felt as if he had reached his limit. He knew that once he stopped or even showed the slightest sign of weakness, it would become an incentive for the mutated blood demon to catch up. This mutated blood demon was called Chu-Mu, and he knew that it had terrifying endurance. The mutated blood demon's dark red skin glowed with a scarlet luster, and it looked like a bloody demon god. It roared, and a brutal aura rushed over, making Chu-Mu feel numb all over. Damn it! I have to find a way to escape. Chu-Mu thought. He resisted the feeling of falling asleep and tried to think of a way. The difference in strength was too obvious, and he didn't have any advantage in speed. He felt like he was at the end of the road. The mutated blood demon once again closed the distance between Chu-Mu, and it was less than 50 meters. It opened its mouth, and a bloody light gathered and suddenly shot out. A bloody light, bullet the size of a human, head tore through the air and whistled towards Chu-Mu. Chu-Mu felt his scalp go numb, and he tried his best to dodge. With a boom, the blood-colored bullet of light hit the ground and exploded. Chu-Mu's body staggered and flew backwards. In that instant, because he was too tired, his use of wind concept had paused. By the time he reacted, he was already a bit too slow. Human, I will suck your blood dry. Delicious blood. The mutated blood demon roared and crazily rushed towards him. It raised its right claw and opened it. The 1-foot-long claw rippled with a scarlet luster, giving off a murderous aura. All of a sudden, a snow-white sword light pierced through the air. The icy coldness caused Chu-Mu to involuntarily shiver. Wherever the snow-white sword light passed, the moisture in the air would condense into countless ice shards. The sudden appearance of the snow-white sword light contained great power. It chopped down on the sharp claws of the mutant blood demon. With a bang, the snow-white sword light shattered, and the mutant blood demon was sent flying backward. Its sharp claws were covered in frost. Chu-Mu and the mutant blood demon were startled at the same time. A snow-white figure shot towards them from afar, like an arrow leaving the bowstring, as fast as lightning. A sword light pierced through the void, and an icy chill descended upon the earth. The mutated blood demon roared, and its strong dark red body seemed to swell up again. The dense blood light formed a halo that spread out in the air, and its 2 sharp claws waved repeatedly to break the frost. A terrible, ear-piercing tearing sound was heard. The sky was filled with claw shadows, about to tear the snow-white figure into pieces. However, the snow-white figure waved its sword light. Snowflakes appeared out of thin air and fell to the ground, dancing in the air. Under the snowflakes, the sky was filled with claw shadows like bubbles. The snow-white sword light seemed tough, but it was incomparably tough. It directly shattered the sky, full of bloody claw shadows, and cut down the mutant blood demon without any hindrance. With a bang, the mutant blood demon was bombarded by the snow-white sword light, and its body flew backward for dozens of meters. The cold, white snow spread rapidly, and a layer of frost spread on the mutant blood demon's chest. This sword is too fierce, too fast, too fierce. The mutant blood demon felt as if the blood in its body had been frozen. For a moment, it couldn't flow, and its power seemed to be confined. In the next moment, an extremely terrifying aura condensed into a sword and became one with the sword in its hand. This sword, full of unparalleled charm, traversed the void for dozens of meters, like a falling snow-white meteor, and stabbed at the mutant blood demon. This sword seemed to be imprinted in Chu-Mu's eyes for eternity. The mutant blood demon screamed in horror, but it couldn't dodge. It could only cross its claws in front of its chest in an attempt to block this earth-shattering, sure-kill sword. This sword had the intent to kill, and it aimed to kill in one blow without holding back. The mutant blood demon crossed its claws to block, but it didn't have the slightest effect. The snow-white sword light, condensed like a thin line of sky, directly pierced through the gap between the crossed claws, broke open its chest, and pierced into its heart. The terrifying ice and snow sword aura exploded, and a chill invaded its body. The mutant blood demon's heart shattered and froze at the same time. All of its vitality was annihilated in an instant. the snow-white figure landed on the ground. Only then did Chumu see clearly the person who came with this unparalleled charm. Han Ruashua. Thank you, Senior Sister Han. Opening his eyes, Chumu stood up and saluted to the person who was standing on the side, motionless like a lonely cliff, with sincere respect and gratitude. If it weren't for Han Ruashua's appearance, Chumu's little life would have been lost to the four-striped mutant blood demon. Therefore, it was an indisputable fact that Han Ruashua had saved Chumu's life. However, Chumu wouldn't promise anything in return. That wasn't his habit. He would firmly remember this favor in his heart, and one day he would definitely repay it. Moreover, after killing the mutant blood demon with that unparalleled charm, Han Ruashua didn't abandon Chumu. Instead, she stood on the side and waited for Chumu to recover. She turned around and glanced at Chumu. Her beautiful eyes were as calm as water. Without saying a word, she transformed into a snow-white streak and flew away, disappearing in the blink of an eye. What a terrifying mutant blood demon! Chumu looked at Han Ruashua's disappearing back, and then at the mutant blood demon that had turned into a piece of skin on the ground after being killed. He said to himself, Han Ruashua is even more terrifying. The spiritual energy in the blood demon realm was scarce. Chumu had only replenished his innate sword aura after taking an aura renewal pill. As for the exhaustion on the mental level in his limbs, it would take some time to recover. During the process of recovering his innate sword aura, he had recovered more than half of his strength. Chumu simply sat down cross-legged again, allowing his mind and body to recover. I wonder when I will be as strong as Senior Sister Han. Chumu thought to himself. His eyes gradually lit up as he recalled the scene when Han Ruashua had suddenly appeared out of nowhere, direct and fierce, without any unnecessary movements. The sword light was as condensed as a line. This Senior Sister Han's swordsmanship is definitely above Situko's. That sword move. In Chumu's mind, he replayed the scene where Han Ruashua had used the snowflakes to send the mutant blood demon flying, and the last stunning sword move that was full of unparalleled charm. His brain was overloaded, and the soul power that he had just recovered was consumed again. That sword move contained the snow essence, and the level of comprehension was definitely above my wind essence, Chumu thought to himself. In addition, I even felt the fluctuation of sword momentum from that sword move. Among the more than 70,000 students, she is ranked 53rd on the bronze sword ranking. It is not strange to say that she has comprehended more than 50% of the snow essence. It is also not strange to say that she has comprehended sword momentum, which is not inferior to mine. However, to condense the snow essence and the minor success sword momentum in one sword move, was it my illusion? Or to combine the essence and the sword momentum in one sword move, is it a deeper application of the sword momentum? My feeling was not wrong. That sword move contained not only the snow essence, but also the sword momentum. That sword move was really a combination of essence and the sword momentum. After being shocked, Chumu was lost in thought. Sword momentum. In the Qingfeng sword sect, he was still an outer disciple. Facing the pressure of the inner disciple Wangfeng, he touched the surface of the sword momentum for the first time, but he did not understand it at that time. It was the sword pavilion elder who opened a window for Chumu, allowing him to see the scenery outside, and let him know the realm of the sword way, sword momentum. Since then, Chumu had been working hard to comprehend it, and finally, by chance, he had comprehended the half-step sword momentum. Then he had perfected the sword momentum and reached the entry level. However, the application of the sword momentum was very monotonous. It was only released when necessary to frighten the enemy and strive for an instant kill, until he saw the battle between Huangfu Xinglong and Ouyang Qingye in the outer palace. Huangfu Xinglong had used the sword momentum to release the sword momentum into the sword in his hand. The power of that sword had shocked Chumu, and at the same time opened a door for Chu-Mu. The scenery outside the door was an extension of that window. After that, Chu-Mu worked hard to comprehend how to condense the sword momentum into the sword. Finally, he took the opportunity when Huangfu Shenglong and the others broke through to the Qi transformation realm to successfully comprehend and create the prison-breaking sword. However, he did not expect that before the prison-breaking sword could shine, he would suddenly see a sword that surpassed the prison-breaking sword. In other words, Han Ruoshua's sword was equivalent to an upgraded version of the prison-breaking sword. All kinds of thoughts filled his mind. Is that sword an extension of the sword momentum or the sword momentum? This thought suddenly appeared in Chu-Mu's mind. That sword had both the sword momentum and the sword momentum, and the two were merged into one. Was it an extension of the sword momentum or the sword momentum? After thinking hard, Chu-Mu suddenly became clear-headed and could not help but reveal a self-mocking smile. Whether it is an extension of the sword momentum or the sword momentum, it is a sword that has successfully merged the sword momentum and the sword momentum into one. Its power is much stronger than the prison-breaking sword alone. What I need to do is to comprehend this sword and figure out how to merge the sword momentum and the sword momentum into one to release it. Sword Dao Realm. Sword momentum. It is indeed more profound, rich, and unpredictable than I imagined. Swordsman. Swordsman. As expected of a civilization that has developed for tens of thousands of years, far surpassing swordsmen who only have a few thousand years of history. Chu-Mu never thought that the swordsmen of the ancient sword continent were inferior to swordsmen. In truth, the two were similar and had their own strengths. In comparison, swordsmen focused on basic sword techniques and had an unparalleled foundation. For swordsmen, basic sword techniques were only a transition, but they were indispensable. They would develop more and more in the future. It is not easy to comprehend the sword. At least, I have no idea how to do it now. Chu-Mu thought to himself, I'd better recover my essence, energy, and spirit to their peak before continuing to hunt for small blood demons and obtain their blood demon cores. As for this sword, I can slowly comprehend it. With my comprehension ability, it shouldn't take me too much time to fully comprehend it. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 219. The sword light was sharp and as fast as lightning, sweeping across the void. This strike did not use sword energy or artistic conception. It was not even a basic move of swordsmanship. It was just a simple horizontal strike of basic swordsmanship. The one-stripe blood demon that was charging at him paused. Its head flew high into the air and fell to the ground. The blood demons did not have sword energy similar to human swordsmen's sword energy. They relied on the strength of their blood and the toughness of their skin. Moreover, the strength of their blood would create an invisible layer of protection on their tough skin. Even the skin of a one-stripe blood demon could not be cut open by a pseudo-sword, unless the pseudo-sword was imbued with innate sword energy. Even with the sharpness of an inferior-grade sword, it was not easy to cut open the skin of a one-mark blood demon without using his innate sword aura and intent realm, let alone cut off his head with a single strike. Chu-Mu did it. It was not that his breeze sword was sharper than other inferior-grade swords. It was just a very ordinary inferior-grade sword. The reason why he could cut off the head of the one-stripe blood demon with one strike was that Chu-Mu had unleashed 100% or even 120% of the sharpness of the breeze sword. When the sword cut the neck of the blood demon, Chu-Mu had used the swordsmanship techniques he had inherited. He had shaken the blade at a high speed, causing a high frequency of vibration and creating an even more terrifying cutting force. This was completely based on his unfathomable swordsmanship attainments and his compatibility with the sword. An excellent swordsman had to understand the sword in his hand. He had to be 100% compatible with the sword in his hand in order to unleash 120% of the sword's power. Otherwise, even if he was given a better sword, He would not be able to unleash the sword's power perfectly if he was not 100% compatible with the sword. He would not be able to unleash the sword's power perfectly, and he would not be able to inflict too much damage. There was a saying in the world of swordsmen on Earth: when you are perfectly compatible with the sword in your hand and your swordsmanship is cultivated to an unfathomable level, even ghosts and gods will have to retreat when the two become one. The frequency of vibration is higher. My swordsmanship attainments have indeed improved. When his gaze fell on the front, Chu Mu was immediately shocked. The one-striped blood demon's head rapidly shriveled until only a piece of skin was left on the ground. However, there was no blood spurting out from the headless body of the little blood demon. The wound on its neck kept wriggling, and a mass of red suddenly shot out. At first, it was only the size of an egg, but it quickly expanded and a brand new head appeared. No wonder it's said that the heart is the blood demon's only weakness. Chu Mu calmed down and stabbed out. The condensed sword light pierced through the little blood demon's heart. After picking out the blood demon core, Chu Mu felt strange. The blood demon core was found in the head of the little blood demon. There was no blood demon core in the head that he had cut off earlier, but it just so happened that there was one in this newly born head. After thinking for a while, Chu Mu could not figure out the mystery. He gave up thinking about it. There were too many things that he needed to think about. There was no need for him to waste his time on things that were not of direct and practical help to him. During the trip to the blood demon realm, Chu Mu had shifted his focus from collecting more blood demon cores to honing his basic swordsmanship. He was striving to improve his mastery of basic swordsmanship again in the short period of 1 month so that he could reach a higher level of swordsmanship. Swoosh! Bang! Suddenly, a sharp sound came from afar. Chu Mu looked over and saw a ray of light shooting into the sky from the ground and exploding like fireworks. It's similar to a signal flare. Blood demons don't have such things. It should be a swordsman who has entered the blood demon realm. With a thought, Chu Mu performed quick wind shadow and rushed toward the signal flare. Since there was a signal flare, it meant that there was danger. The danger in the blood demon realm usually came from the little blood demons. Based on this conjecture, it was possible that the students of the Sword Mansion had sent out the signal flare for help because there were many little blood demons surrounding them. Chu Mu's goal was to get closer and take a look. If it was within his ability, he would kill them. But if the little blood demons were too strong, he could only watch them die. Kill! Why are there so many of them? Delicious, delicious blood. This is mine. When Chu Mu arrived, he was shocked. There were dozens of little blood demons in front of him. They formed a circle and surrounded the 3 students of the Sword Mansion. Among the group of little blood demons, there were several shriveled and almost decayed corpses. They were the corpses of human swordsmen. Their bodies were covered with bloody fangs. The 3 students stood back to back and leaned against each other to form a triangle. They were bathed in blood. The blood belonged to both the little blood demons and humans. The 3 of them looked tired. Their eyes were filled with madness and fear. There were too many little blood demons. Although most of them were one-stripe blood demons, and there were only a dozen two-stripe blood demons, their fearless fighting style made them tired. The only weakness of a blood demon was its heart. Perhaps with their initial chi transformation realm cultivation and superb swordsmanship, they could quickly pierce through the heart of a little blood demon and kill it in a one-on-one fight. But surrounded by dozens of little blood demons, each of them had to face the attacks of at least 3 little blood demons at the same time. It was impossible for them to pierce through a little blood demon's heart. Not piercing through the heart, but only causing damage to other parts of the body would make the little blood demons even crazier. On the contrary, if they were scratched by the claws of the little blood demons, the wounds would be difficult to heal. Blood would continuously flow out, and their essence, chi, and spirit would decline. In the end, they would either die from blood loss or from the sharp claws and fangs of the little blood demons. Their blood would also stimulate the little blood demons, making them crazier and more bloodthirsty. Chu Mu glanced over and discovered that although there were many little blood demons, there were only one stripe and two stripe blood demons. This made him heave a sigh of relief. There are a total of 53 little blood demons, which means 53 blood demon cores. Chu Mu thought to himself. He turned into a gust of wind and attacked. The clear wind sword pierced through the air, creating a green streak. The connate sword chi condensed at the tip of the sword and pierced through the void like a cold star. The sword directly pierced through the back of a little blood demon, where its heart was. The sword chi strangled it. Chu Mu did not stop. He killed one with each step he took. His appearance was too sudden and too fast. It was not until the fourth little blood demon died under his sword that he attracted the attention of the other little blood demons and the 3 Sword Mansion students. Someone is here to help. The 3 swordsmen were immediately delighted. But when they saw that there was only one person, the joy on their faces froze and their hearts sank. One person? Even if Deshang was in the Qi transformation realm, it would not be easy for him to kill so many little blood demons with his sword Qi. If he was not careful, he might even be tortured to death by these little blood demons. In the next second, a scene that made their hair stand on end and their bodies tremble appeared. One sword strike, one kill. It was as if there was no one around. They saw that person standing still. The little blood demons all let out sharp howls as if they were enraged. The little wings on their backs flapped crazily, and they flew toward Chu Mu. Chu Mu's face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. Sword light condensed, and his sword was like a dragon. He did not need to look with his eyes or turn his head to know what was going on around him. The little blood demons surrounded Chu Mu from all directions. They opened their sharp claws and bared their fangs as they flew toward him. They were extremely ferocious. The 3 swordsmen only saw that under the encirclement of the little blood demons, there seemed to be wisps of dark sword light shooting into the void. The darkness was a sign that the sword light had been condensed to a certain limit. Under such condensed sword light, the power of the sword would multiply and become extremely terrifying. The 3 swordsmen looked at each other, and their hearts trembled. They all felt that this reinforcement, who they had yet to see his true face, was terrifying. To be able to possess such condensed sword light meant that his swordsmanship attainments must be extremely high. It was something that they could never hope to catch up to. The 3-meter forbidden zone reappeared. Any little blood demon that flew within 3 meters of Chu Mu would be greeted by a cold green star that contained a wisp of innate sword chi. One-stripe little blood demons could not dodge the cold green star at all. Their hearts would be pierced in an instant, and the wisp of innate sword chi would explode in their hearts and mince them into pieces. Killing a one-stripe little blood demon in the 3-meter forbidden zone was a piece of cake. However, Chu Mu discovered that the 3-meter forbidden zone was somewhat difficult for him to deal with a 2-stripe little blood demon. The 2-stripe little blood demon was obviously superior to the 1-stripe little blood demon in terms of strength, speed, and other aspects. The cold green star could only barely hit the left side of the 2-stripe little blood demon's chest and split it open. However, the wisp of innate sword chi contained in it was consumed, and it could not mince the 2-stripe little blood demon's heart at all. As a result, he could not kill the 2-stripe little blood demon with one strike. This has nothing to do with my swordsmanship attainments. It's purely because the power of the innate sword chi is not strong enough. If my cultivation base can reach the initial level of the chi transformation realm, the power of the innate sword chi will be even stronger, and I'll be able to kill the 2-stripe little blood demon with one strike. Or, if I've already cultivated the 9 transformations of heaven origin, the innate sword chi will definitely be purer and more condensed than it is now, and I'll be able to kill the 2-stripe little blood demon with one strike. That was what he said, but there were no ifs. It was just a hypothesis. Even if he could not kill the 2-stripe little blood demon with one strike, he could still injure them by eliminating all distracting thoughts. when the two-striped little blood demon flew into a rage and pounced at him again. Two cold green stars pierced through the air one after another. With a puff, the first cold green star contained a wisp of innate sword chi and opened a small wound on the left side of the two-striped little blood demon's chest. The wound was blocked by the innate sword chi and could not heal immediately. The second cold green star immediately pierced through the small wound that was about to heal and went straight for the heart. The innate sword chi exploded in the heart and destroyed it. The two-striped little blood demon let out a shrill scream and dashed around in midair. After all, the two-striped little blood demon was not directly pierced by a sword, so it could not kill it instantly. However, the destruction of its heart also quickly cut off its vitality. Amid its shrill screams and struggles, it fell to its death. The little blood demon fell to the ground like a bird that had been shot. The three swordsmen were dumbfounded. The little blood demon's struggles and screams before its death made their scalps go numb, and they couldn't help but shiver. A wisp of fear surged up in their hearts. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 220. Of the 53 little blood demons, only 3 two-striped ones were still attacking Chumu. On the ground, within a radius of 3 meters around Chumu, the bodies of the little blood demons were scattered all over the place. Their shriveled bodies piled up in a weird circle. There were drops of blood on the ground within a radius of 3 meters. That alone was enough to make the pupils of the 3 swordsmen constrict violently. Their hair stood on end, and they were trembling all over. Such swordsmanship was enough to scare away ghosts and gods. Another 2 blue stars appeared and killed a two-striped blood demon. When the blood dripped down, the other 2 two-striped blood demons suddenly let out ear-piercing shrieks. They turned around in midair and flew into the distance. The 2 two-striped blood demons, who were not afraid of death, were scared and ran away. Chumu could only watch the 2 two-striped blood demons run away. It was not that he did not want to kill them, but that he could not. Right now, the 3-meter forbidden zone was only a prototype. It would take 3 breaths to enter or leave the zone. With the speed of the 2-striped blood demons, and with all their strength, they would be able to fly more than 100 or 2 meters away in 3 breaths. It would be impossible to catch up with them. The 3 students of the Sword Mansion finally came to themselves. One of them hurriedly saluted Chumu. "Thank you for your help, senior brother." Their hair was disheveled, and their faces were stained with blood. Chumu could not see their faces clearly. "It's nothing," Chumu said. Of course, he would not tell them that his purpose was not to save them, but to get the blood demon cores of the little blood demons. Although his main purpose of entering the blood demon realm had changed, it was still a good thing that he could get more blood demon cores. Of the 3, only one person didn't perform a sword salute to Chumu, but Chumu didn't mind. The man shook his head, making his hair even messier and covering his face even more. However, his eyes stared at Chumu through the gaps in his hair. Chumu walked to the shriveled corpses of the small blood demons on the ground. He cut open the skulls with his sword and picked out the blood demon cores one by one and put them into his space bracelet. He was already very familiar with such things and was very used to it. Space bracelet. The swordsman, who had been silent all this time, suddenly sent a message to the other 2. "He has a space bracelet." The other 2 took a closer look and were shocked. A spatial bracelet. That was a treasure that could only be exchanged for with 1 million credits. They didn't have it. They didn't expect that the person who saved them would have one. A space bracelet is worth 1 million credits. You've seen his swordsmanship. I believe there must be a lot of blood demon cores in that space bracelet. Together with the 51 here, they're worth a lot of credits. No, he just saved us. If it weren't for him, we would probably have died at the hands of those little blood demons. Humph! I'm afraid his purpose wasn't to save us, but to kill those little blood demons and obtain their blood demon cores. That may be true, but it's an indisputable fact that the three of us were saved because of him. I can't do such an ungrateful thing to attack him. The argument between the three of them was carried out using sword auras. They were some distance away from Chu Mu, so Chu Mu couldn't hear them. You can choose not to attack. As long as you don't make a sound, I can give you 200,000 credits from the loot after killing him. With these 200,000 credits, I believe you can exchange them for something very helpful to you. The man immediately fell silent. The reason he took the risk to enter the blood demon realm was to obtain blood demon cores and exchange them for credits. 200,000 credits. If converted into blood demon cores, it would be equivalent to 2,000 one-stripe blood demon cores. It meant that he had to kill 2,000 one-stripe blood demons, which was simply impossible for him. Compared to the so-called life-saving grace, the 200,000 credits were more tempting. Remember what you said, Gu Shiping, after killing him and leaving the blood demon realm. You must give me 200,000 credits, he finally said. Don't worry, you won't be left out. Gu Shiping coldly snorted and transmitted his voice. Yes, he was Gu Shiping, a member of the Heavenly King's palace. He was the one who was dissatisfied and even jealous because Chu Mu refused to join the Heavenly King's palace. From the moment he recognized Chu Mu, the jealousy in his heart burned like a raging fire. Coupled with the fact that Chu Mu had a space bracelet and so on, it gave him more than enough reason to kill him. As for the life-saving grace, how much could it be worth? They could all see that Chu Mu's cultivation was only at the Qi transformation stage. Even if he had terrifying swordsmanship, if they suddenly attacked him and caught him off guard, they would definitely be able to kill him. Gu Shiping and the other person subconsciously walked towards Chu Mu quietly. Senior brother, let us help you. The swordsman next to Gu Shiping said aloud. He pulled out his sword and stabbed at the head of a shriveled little blood demon on the ground. Gu Shiping also pulled out his sword and suddenly stabbed at Chu Mu's back. In a flash, the sword aura and murderous intent filled the air. This sword was determined to kill. The swordsman who stabbed at the little blood demon's head suddenly turned the tip of his sword and slashed at Chu Mu's neck. It was too sudden and extremely dangerous. Gu Shiping's eyes were filled with murderous intent. There was a hint of joy and madness in them. This sword was unexpected and had a 100% chance of killing. In the next second, the joy and madness in Gu Shiping's eyes froze and turned into astonishment. This was because the sword had indeed pierced through Chu Mu's body, but there was no force behind it. In other words, the sword had missed. The Chu Mu in front of them had unknowingly turned into an afterimage and slowly dissipated under their swords. What are you waiting for? Gu Shiping's reaction was extremely fast. He sensed that something was wrong and immediately roared. He wanted the third person to attack as well. With the strength of the three initial Qi transformation realm, they might be able to fight Chu Mu. It had to be said that the terrifying swordsmanship that Chu Mu had displayed to kill the little blood demon had already thrown the three of them into disarray. Their fear of Chu Mu had risen to a level higher than that of Desheng, who was in the Qi transformation realm. The three of them attacked again. This time they didn't need to hide. Innate sword Qi surged, and their killer moves were displayed. In an instant, sand and stones were swept across the sky. Flames burned the ground, and lightning flashed across the sky. The lightning was dazzling. However, their killer moves all missed. What they destroyed was only Chu Mu's phantom. The perfected phantom step made it difficult to distinguish between real and fake. A dim sword light seemed to come from the void and broke through one of the swordsman's protective sword Qi. The sharpness of the sword made his heart contract instantly. It was as if he had killed the little blood demon. The sword pierced the right side of his chest and pierced his heart. Innate sword Qi burst forth and crushed his heart. The heart was also one of the weaknesses of humans. How did you avoid our attack? Gu Shiping roared. He was extremely unwilling. This attack should have been foolproof. Chu Mu didn't answer. The reason he knew about their attack was completely due to his sharp sense of killing intent. In that instant, when Gu Shiping and the others had the intention to kill, traces of killing intent leaked out. Chu Mu immediately sensed it. He wasn't stupid. Even if he had saved these 3 people in passing, Chu Mu wouldn't let down his guard. However, he didn't need to tell Gu Shiping. There was only one outcome. If they wanted to kill him, they would be killed by him. Human swordsmen were not like the little blood demon. Chu Mu used the perfected phantom step and took advantage of their confusion to kill one of them. This made the remaining 2 even more terrified. Using the 44% wind concept to the limit and combining it with the perfect phantom step, it caused Chu Mu's body to become even more unpredictable as it alternated between true and false. If Gu Shiping and the other swordsmen could get rid of the fear in their hearts and calm down, they might be able to contend with Chu Mu. It would be extremely easy for Chu Mu to kill them in a 1 versus 2 situation. However, they couldn't even use 50% of their strength right now. From the moment they decided to attack Chu Mu, their fates had already been decided. After a few consecutive moves, Chu Mu's sword knocked away Gu Shiping's sword and slashed his neck. Blood spurted out like a fountain. You. Gu Shiping pointed at Chu Mu, but couldn't say anything. He covered his neck with one hand and fell weakly to the ground with eyes full of unwillingness. He was extremely unwilling. The ending shouldn't be like this. The one who should die should be Chu Mu, not him. Even when he was about to die, Gu Shiping didn't feel any regret. If such a despicable person didn't die, he would only bring more unnecessary trouble to Chu Mu. Wait, the 3rd swordsman hurriedly shouted. It was all Gu Shiping's idea. I even objected to it. You are our savior, but you also attacked me. Chu Mu's words left the other party speechless. I can compensate you. You didn't lose anything. I'll give you all the blood demon cores I obtained. The other party hurriedly shouted. If I kill you, the blood demon cores will still be mine, Chu Mu said coldly. No. Gu Shiping is a member of the Heavenly King Palace. If you kill him, the Heavenly King Palace might investigate this matter. I can make up a reason, the other party said again. Leaving you alive is the worst thing to do. Chu Mu wasn't moved at all. Regardless of whether the Heavenly King Palace would investigate or not, leaving no one alive was the best thing to do. Otherwise, if he let this person go and reported to the Heavenly King Palace, Chu Mu wouldn't be able to fight against them. Phantom step, wind sweep, continuously changing and pushing it to the limit. It made the other party's vision a mess. They couldn't tell what was going on and could only attack randomly. Their sword chi was quickly consumed. Chu Mu quickly moved, avoiding the other party's attack. Just when the other party's attack stopped, he seized the opportunity and stabbed out. With a poochie sound, the sword pierced through the throat. Shaking off the blood on the tip of the sword, Chu Mu calmly looked at the person in front of him. He covered his throat with both hands. Blood kept flowing out through the gaps between his fingers. His eyes were fixed on Chu Mu, filled with unwillingness and anger. His body softened and fell down. Those who kill will be killed, not to mention those who bite the hand that feeds them. The sword of my generation should be happy to repay kindness and revenge. Chu Mu softly muttered to himself. He put the breeze sword back into its scabbard. His gaze slowly swept across the 3 corpses, and he began to organize the spoils. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chijian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 221. The counting was complete. In addition to the 51 blood demons killed by Chu Mu, there were 23 blood demons killed by Gu Shiping and the others. Among them, 54 were 1-striped blood demons, 20 were 2-striped blood demons, and the 3 swordsmen killed by Gu Shiping, as well as the blood demon cores in the bags of the dead swordsmen, whose blood had been sucked dry by the blood demons. This time, Chu Mu obtained a total of 275 one-striped blood demon cores and 45 two-striped blood demon cores. A one-striped blood demon core was worth 100 credits, and a two-striped blood demon core was worth 200 credits. This time, Chu Mu would obtain 36,500 credits. If the blood demon cores obtained by Chu Mu were included, the total credits would exceed 50,000 credits. 9 cycles of heavenly origin. Once I leave the blood demon realm, you'll be mine, Chu Mu said to himself. In addition to the blood demon cores, Chu Mu also found some elixirs on these people. There were 23 Qi renewal pills, 18 scarlet blood pills, and 16 gold recovery pills. The Qi renewal pill was used to replenish innate sword Qi. The scarlet blood pill was used to replenish blood, and the gold recovery pill was used to heal injuries. It was very effective on external injuries and had a soothing effect on internal injuries. Comparatively speaking, elixirs that could heal internal injuries and increase cultivation were rarer and more valuable. What made Chu Mu sigh inwardly was that apart from the blood demon cores and elixirs, he didn't find any sword techniques. But after thinking about it carefully, he felt relieved. After all, killing blood demons didn't require those things. Moreover, even if someone brought them in and he found them, so what? Although the manuals exchanged from the Sword Mansion Scripture Tower were all handwritten copies, the Sword Mansion had a clear record of who had exchanged for what manuals and so on. According to the Sword Mansion's rules, apart from the person who exchanged for the manuals, no one else was allowed to practice them. Otherwise, once the Sword Mansion found out the truth, they would be punished according to the rules. A light punishment would be expulsion from the Sword Mansion, and a heavy punishment would be death on the spot. Therefore, although some people had thought of cheating, when they thought of the consequences of their mistakes, they felt that the gains did not make up for the losses. Even if he was only expelled from the Sword Mansion, it would still be a huge stain on his life. After putting all the blood, demon cores, and pills into the space bracelet, the space inside was almost full. How good would it be if my spatial bracelet was a middle-grade spatial bracelet? Chu Mu thought to himself. After entering the inner mansion, there were related books in the independent sword tower that could be read at any time, including the classification of the space bracelet. The black iron space wristband was a low-rank space wristband. The bronze space wristband was a middle-rank space wristband. The silver space wristband was a high-rank space wristband. And the gold space wristband was a supreme rank space wristband. Different colors, different grades, and different internal spaces. The internal space of a low-grade space wristband was only 1 cubic meter. The internal space of a middle-grade space wristband was 10 cubic meters, and so on. The internal space of an upper-grade space wristband was 100 cubic meters. And the internal space of an extreme-grade space wristband was 1,000 cubic meters. The spatial bracelet was too precious. Just the low-grade bracelet would cost 1,000,000 credits, and the mid-grade bracelet would cost an unknown amount. Chu Mu did not even dare to think about the high-grade bracelet. Now he felt that if he could obtain a middle-grade space wristband with an internal space of 10 cubic meters, he would be very satisfied. 7 corpses, 7 low-grade swords. Chu Mu chose a metal elemental sword called the Gold Point Sword and carried it on his back. As for the other 6 low-grade swords, they were inconvenient to carry, so Chu Mu did not care about them. With the Gold Point Sword, the dual sword art could be put to good use. The dual sword art danced, and the sword light filled the air. In the 3-meter forbidden zone, only death awaited. With the dual sword art, the 2-striped blood demon was also beheaded in an instant, dying an unnatural death. After using the dual sword art, Chu Mu's strength increased by another 30%. He picked up the blood demon nucleus and stored it in the space bracelet and inserted the gold point sword into the scabbard on his back. The dual sword art could actually be regarded as one of Chu Mu's less important trump cards. If the enemy was not very strong, he could deal with it with a single sword. If the enemy was strong, he would use both swords. The blood-red sword light was swung. With a squelch, the sword pierced the neck of a two-striped blood demon. A strange scene appeared. The two-striped blood demon's body rapidly shriveled, and its blood flowed continuously through the blood-red longsword to the sword wielder. After a while, the two-striped blood demon was left with only its skin. It did not even have a blood demon nucleus. It was flung away by the sword. The sword wielder put away the blood-red longsword and looked into the distance. There seemed to be a blood-red vortex in his strange eyes, which were incomparably deep. Another swordsman has entered the blood demon realm. Their blood is not inferior to the blood demons at all. He muttered to himself. A hair-raising voice came out of his thin lips and dissipated with a gust of wind. In a flash, the sword wielder turned into a blood-red stream of light and quickly flew into the distance. Walking on the vast, dark-red land, Chu-Mu searched for blood demons to kill while looking for the so-called blood evil stones and blood essences. Compared to the blood demon nucleus, blood evil stones and blood essences were much more valuable. They could be exchanged for many times more credits. There was no day or night in the blood demon realm. There was no alternation between the sun and the moon. Chu-Mu did not know how many days he had been here. He could only feel that a long time had passed. In front of him, there were 3 corpses on the ground. They were human swordsmen. Their bodies had long shriveled up because they had lost all their blood. Human swordsmen hunted blood demons, and blood demons hunted human swordsmen. There was nothing unusual about this. Moreover, after blood demons sucked the blood of human swordsmen dry, they would often take away the swords and bags of the swordsmen. These were their spoils of war. When Chu-Mu passed by the 3 shriveled corpses, he inadvertently glanced at them and was startled. This was because he found the 3 corpses somewhat familiar. Weren't they He Zhen, Zhang Xiyuan, and the others who had mocked him earlier? He turned his gaze and saw the 3 swords and 3 open bags. This was very unusual. His pupils constricted as he slowly scanned the corpses. His gaze landed on the wound on one of corpses, and then slowly slid to the other 2 corpses. Squatting down, Chu-Mu carefully examined the corpses. He found that there was only 1 wound on each of the 3 corpses. It was on their necks. This wound is different from the claws and fangs of the blood demons. Instead, it seems to have been left by a sword. Chu-Mu thought to himself, if it was really a wound left by a sword, then the blade of the sword should be narrower than the blade of a regular sword. The thickness of the sword should also be thinner. Chu-Mu stood up and looked around. He was even more perplexed. There were traces of sword aura in the surroundings. Clearly, a battle had taken place. However, other than the 3 corpses, there were no corpses of the young blood demons. There was not even a trace of them. However, there was nothing in the 3 open bags. Could it be that the 3 of them had an internal conflict? That's not right. The wounds on their necks were not caused by any sword. Could it be that a 4th person killed the 3 of them and took away all the blood demon cores in their bags? No. In addition to the wounds on their necks, their blood was also sucked dry. If it was a swordsman, if it was a blood demon. For a moment, Chu-Mu was so confused that he could not find a clue. Could it be that they encountered a mutated blood demon? Chu-Mu speculated in the end. Unable to find a conclusion, Chu-Mu temporarily suppressed his confusion and moved on. Human, I'm going to suck your blood dry. Strange cries rang out. Several blood demons flew at him from different angles. Chu-Mu's expression was cold. His sword light was like a dragon. Several sword lights took away a few lives and picked out a few blood demon cores. Suddenly, Chu-Mu felt his scalp go numb. A fatal sense of danger swept over his body. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of a bloody sword light. It was extremely swift and fierce and would hit him in the blink of an eye. With a flick of his sword, the last blood demon core flew toward the bloody sword light with a whistling sound. Chu Mu quickly turned around and thrust his sword forward. The sword light condensed. With a bang, the blood demon core was shattered by the bloody sword light. Not only was the bloody sword light unhindered, it locked onto Chu Mu's body with incomparable sharpness, intending to stab Chu Mu to death with one strike. The cyan sword light and the bloody sword light collided, producing an ear-piercing sound of metal and countless sparks. The bloody sword light flickered and split into a dozen bloody sword shadows, enveloping Chu Mu from all directions. Chu Mu swung his sword light at an oblique angle. Wherever the dim sword light passed, the bloody sword shadows were shattered, revealing the original bloody sword light. When the two collided, an ear-piercing sound rang out again. His opponent didn't say a word and kept attacking. His swordsmanship surprised Chu Mu. Fast, ruthless, fierce, and indomitable, this was a ferocious man. Each of his sword strikes contained an extremely frightening, killing intent. Those with a weak will would be so frightened that they couldn't move, let alone fight back. However, Chu Mu's soul was strong, and his sword momentum had reached a small success. This killing intent, which was like killing thousands of soldiers and horses, couldn't shake his mind. It only surprised him. In comparison, Chu Mu's swordsmanship seemed ordinary, but he could always make his opponent's sword strike miss. His swordsmanship seemed to contain everything. This was the level of a grandmaster. The blood-colored sword light was incomparably sharp. Every slash seemed to be able to pierce through the void. Every slash could easily kill a one-mark small blood demon. However, every slash was easily blocked by Chu Mu and counterattacked. Kill! A thunderous shout rang out. Chu Mu only felt the baleful aura increase by several times, almost surpassing his limit. His entire body instantly froze. An extremely condensed blood-red sword light with earth-shattering power had already arrived, and blood-red sword chi was entwined around it. Chu Mu raised his eyelids. His pupils were astonishingly sharp. The muscles on his arms trembled. Innate sword aura poured in layer by layer. The clear wind sword condensed into a cyan star and pierced through the air. The terrifying collision was like a steel plate shattering. The ear-piercing sound made Chu Mu frown. It was as if his eardrums had been pierced. A huge force rushed over. Chu Mu quickly retreated to dissipate the force. His opponent also retreated quickly, increasing the distance between them. Blood demon. Chu Mu finally saw his opponent clearly. He was stunned. No, it doesn't look like a blood demon, but it doesn't look like a human either. Could it be a mutated blood demon? A mutated blood demon knows how to use a sword and has a high level of swordsmanship? Chu Mu's gaze fell on the blood-colored, long sword the opponent was pointing at. His pupils shrunk, and he naturally thought of the wounds on the necks of the human swordsman corpses he had seen before. They seemed to match the tip of the blood-colored, long sword in front of him. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 222. Long blood-red hair hung down vertically, and it wore a blood-red robe. Its exposed skin was blood-red, and its appearance was completely different from the blood demons. It looked more like a human, or it could be said that this guy was like a human wearing the skin of a blood demon. Its entire body emitted a bloodthirsty aura that could shake thousands of soldiers and horses. It forced people into the void and made people tremble in fear. Chu Mu's expression was serious. He pointed the Qing Feng sword at the other party from a distance. There were 2 lines on the other party's forehead, which were exactly the same as the lines on the little blood demon's forehead. However, Chu Mu also noticed that there was a bronze space bracelet on its left wrist. This strange person's eyes were not black or white. They were red, as if they were overflowing with blood. It was so red that it was shining. Being stared at by those blood-red eyes made people's hair stand on end. It was as if they could hear the wails of thousands of ghosts. Chu Mu's will was unshakable. Any negative emotions that attacked him were all defeated by his sword momentum. They could not affect him at all. Junior, your attainments in swordsmanship have exceeded my expectations. A smile suddenly appeared on the strange person's face. Its voice was obscure, like the tip of a knife cutting through glass. It gave people goosebumps. Are you a human or a blood demon? Chu Mu asked indifferently, full of vigilance. The other party did not answer. Instead, the corner of its mouth curled up, revealing a strange smile. Chu Mu was alert. A blood-red light flashed in front of his eyes. He blocked with his sword. There was an explosion, and sparks flew in all directions. He used his sword to counterattack. He flicked it up like tearing a piece of cloth. The sword aura was condensed, and the sword was swallowing and spitting out light. Its power was astonishing. Your blood must be very delicious. The sinister voice was near and far. It was mixed with an astonishing, murderous aura, trying to shake Chu Mu's heart. It was a fatal blow. Chu Mu's expression was as cold as a rock. He blocked the attack and counterattacked. In 3 breaths, a 3-meter forbidden zone was formed. The green cold stars bloomed bit by bit, like a group of bright stars hanging in the sky, and also like meteors falling down, dazzling and enchanting. This strange person's blood-red sword was fast and fierce. Every strike was like a blood-red lightning bolt, but Chu Mu blocked it and counterattacked. Chu Mu stood in place. His sword was like an iron chain blocking the river. No matter how strong the storm was, he would not move. This fellow who looked like both a human and a blood demon. Each of his sword strikes contained terrifying power. Not only was it the power of his body, but it also contained a strange blood-type power. Every time Chu Mu's sword clashed with the blood-red longsword, he would feel a wave of evil energy surging towards him. It was like layers upon layers of waves rushing towards his clear wind sword, attempting to spread to his arm and seep into his body, causing adverse effects. Chu Mu's clear wind sword slightly vibrated. Under the high-frequency vibrations, it immediately shattered the strange power that was attacking him. The blood-red figure wielding the blood-red sword transformed into countless phantoms that surrounded Chu Mu. Chu Mu struck out with his sword continuously. Those were the phantoms formed by his speed. This is the first time I've seen such terrifying swordsmanship. The blood-red figure thought to himself. He slashed out with his sword again. The arm holding the sword swelled, causing the sword's power to multiply. The blood-red longsword was wrapped with a blood-red energy. This sword strike was still blocked by Chu Mu. A terrifying collision sound rang out and the air exploded. Chu Mu only felt an unimaginably powerful impact. He quickly used a defensive technique to disperse the force, but this force was too sudden and too powerful. Chu Mu had to take 2 steps back to disperse the force. The 3-meter forbidden zone had been broken. The blood-red figure grasped this opportunity to strike out with his sword again. His swollen arm repeatedly waved, and the blood-red longsword revolved around him. The blood-red energy surged, and the air constantly exploded. In front of Chu Mu, hundreds of blood-red sword shadows suddenly shot towards him. No matter if he moved forward, backward, or dodged, Chu Mu felt that the hundreds of blood-red sword shadows would catch up with him. Moreover, the power of each sword was extremely terrifying. It was almost beyond what he could handle. Pulling out his sword with his left hand, he crossed his gold-touch sword and clear wind sword in front of him, forming a cross. In the next breath, Chu Mu wielded his sword with both of his hands. He waved his sword and stabbed forward, filling the sky with sword shadows. A series of explosions sounded out. Countless sparks, mixed with the blood-red color, burst out in the air. It was like fireworks exploding between Chu Mu and the blood-red figure. It was incomparably bright, covering both Chu Mu and the blood-red figure. Dual sword technique. With dual swords in hand, I am invincible. The blood-red figure opened his mouth and a fist-sized blood-red light ball shot towards Chu Mu like a cannonball. Chu Mu was 100% alert. His body flashed, and he used the phantom steps to dodge the blood-red light ball. At the same time, he appeared beside the blood-red figure and attacked with both of his swords. With a boom, the blood-red light ball blew out a few-meter deep hole in the ground. Countless pieces of soil splashed out. The blood-red figure fiercely chopped at Chu Mu with his sword, drawing a blood-red light in the air. It was extremely shocking. Both of his swords pointed out continuously, hitting the same spot on the blood-red light ball. The sword tip vibrated at a high frequency, and the blood-red light ball immediately shattered in the middle. In terms of power, Chu Mu knew that he was far inferior to this strange blood-red figure. He could only use his unfathomable dual sword technique to deal with it, and thus gain the upper hand. With both swords in hand, Chu Mu's power increased by another 30%. With one sword attacking and one sword defending, the two swords defending turned into two swords attacking. The changes happened as he wished, as if it was his own instinct. With both swords in hand, he immediately disrupted the blood-red figure's attack rhythm, turning the rhythm into his own. He gradually gained the upper hand. Chu Mu attacked with his swords, becoming more and more relaxed. One of his swords seemed to be an attack, but he suddenly turned and knocked away the blood-red long sword. The other sword slashed at the figure unexpectedly, causing the figure to retreat in horror. What a strange pair of swords! The blood-red figure thought to himself. A hint of fear flashed through his blood-red eyes. This blood demon doppelganger of mine can't cultivate sword chi. It only has the blood power of a small blood demon. Unless it can break through to become a great blood demon, it can't display its power in the form of sword chi like a swordsman. Even so, this blood demon doppelganger of mine is still powerful. It can surpass a swordsman at the peak of the initial stage of chi transformation, and is comparable to a Deshang swordsman. Coupled with my swordsmanship, I can even kill a Deshang swordsman. But I can't do anything to this junior, who is only at the beginning stage of chi transformation. If this person can be used by me, once his cultivation increases, with his unfathomable swordsmanship, he can definitely become my right-hand man and help me conquer the world. Chu Mu didn't know what the blood-red figure was thinking. He only felt that the other party's attack had paused and seemed to have weakened. How could Chu Mu let go of such an opportunity? His two swords changed and moved unpredictably. It was extremely dangerous. With two slashing sounds, the clothes on the other party's chest were cut open. The other party reacted quickly and hurriedly dodged. Chu Mu's sword couldn't cut open the other party's chest to attack the heart. It only cut the skin on the other party's chest, but no blood flowed out. It was as if all the blood in his body was locked inside. In the next breath, the two wounds healed miraculously. This is clearly the ability of a blood demon. Chu Mu's heart trembled. He increasingly felt that the fellow in front of him was a blood demon, but there were many differences between them. Chu Mu found it hard to believe that a blood demon had mutated into such a form. Damn it, if it weren't for the fact that this doppelganger has yet to comprehend 40% of the essence of blood, I could easily defeat this junior with the demonic blood swordsmanship. The blood-red figure was secretly furious. He was very certain that even though this junior's attainments in swordsmanship were extremely shocking, and his dual swordsmanship had shocked him to no end, if it was his true body, even if he suppressed his cultivation to the initial chi transformation stage, he would still be able to easily defeat and kill this junior. However, while the blood demon doppelganger had many benefits, it also had many inconveniences. These inconveniences wouldn't be a hindrance under normal circumstances, but when faced with a difficult opponent like this junior, they became weaknesses. He couldn't defeat him after a long battle. While the blood-red figure was shocked, Chu Mu was also surprised. He had already used his dual swordsmanship, but he still only had a slight upper hand and couldn't kill his opponent. If the opponent is a blood demon, his endurance must be many times greater than mine. A prolonged battle is disadvantageous to me, Chu-Mu said to himself. He thought that he had to seize the opportunity to severely injure his opponent. Both sides had their own thoughts. The blood-red figure's killing intent towards Chu-Mu weakened, and he was thinking about how to defeat Chu-Mu and capture Chu-Mu. They swam like two dragons on the ground, colliding, attacking, and looking for weaknesses. This junior is too difficult to deal with. With my current strength, it's not enough to defeat and capture him. In the end, the blood-red figure had to admit this and wanted to retreat. Other than him, there are other swordsmen and many minor blood demons in the blood demon realm. I'll come and find him after my strength increases to that of a 3-striped minor blood demon. He slashed his sword diagonally, and a blood-red waterfall swept across the sky with a terrifying force. The blood-red figure flew back and quickly turned around, intending to leave. Good chance. Chu-Mu's eyelids trembled, and his pupils shone with a terrifying light. His body swayed, avoiding the blood-red waterfall, and instantly appeared behind his opponent. He stood firmly on the ground with his feet apart, like an unshakable mountain. The golden sword was already in its scabbard. He leaned to one side, and the clear wind sword was held horizontally in front of his eyes. It was vast and majestic, and its sharpness was endless. The blood-red figure's body trembled unconsciously. He felt that he was locked down by an extremely terrifying aura. This aura was like a mountain pressing down on him, and there were countless sharpness on his body. The sword aura was poured into the clear wind sword. The clear wind sword trembled uncontrollably, making a buzzing sound that made one's scalp tingle. An invisible but extremely terrifying force gathered on the clear wind sword. Prison-breaking sword. It was impossible to describe how stunning and brilliant this sword was. Although it did not look as gorgeous as the colorful lights, nor as magnificent as the sword chi, the invisible sword aura condensed from the sword aura was like a meteor that crossed the universe. It made the sun and the moon dim, and the world lose its color. Fast, too fierce, too fierce. Just as the blood-red figure realized that something was wrong and escaped from the sword aura's lock, the sword had already arrived. There was no way to dodge, and there was no way to dodge. The prison-breaking sword pierced through from the left side of his back like a shooting star. The horrifying power poured out, and the blood-red figure seemed to have heard the sound of his own heart breaking. In the next second, the attack started from his heart, and his entire body turned into dust under the horrifying power of the sword. The space within 3 meters was also invaded, and the ground was shattered into countless pieces. He did not even have the chance to say his last threat before he died completely. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 223. Blood splattered across the sky and dyed the earth red. The blood-red longsword flew dozens of meters away and landed on the ground with a clang. The bronze spatial wristband flew to the other side. Chu-Mu's green robe was stained with blood because he didn't try to dodge. Exhaustion spread from his soul to his body. Chu-Mu's face was somewhat pale. After breaking through to the Qi transformation realm, his body had been tempered by spiritual energy and had the effect of being reborn. His soul had also been strengthened and became more powerful. However, his sword aura had also increased from novice to minor success. The amount of energy, and spirit required to use the sword aura had multiplied. In order to produce a fatal blow, Chu-Mu didn't hold back at all. Prison-breaking sword. This was the first time Chu-Mu had used the prison-breaking sword against an enemy after comprehending it. The effect was astonishing. The powerful sword aura first locked onto the enemy, and then killed with a single strike, completely destroying the enemy. Picking up the bronze spatial wristband and putting it away, Chu-Mu sat down cross-legged. He needed to rest for a while and recover his energy to peak condition. Otherwise, in a place like the Blood Demon Realm, he would easily fall into danger if he didn't have enough energy. The strength of his soul didn't just improve Chu Mu's five senses. It also had a unique effect on the natural recovery of his energy, and spirit. It was several times faster than ordinary people. About an hour later, Chu Mu's face was no longer as pale. His energy, and spirit had recovered quite a bit. However, it would still take some time for him to fully recover. Closing his eyes to rest, Chu Mu divided part of his attention to pay attention to the surroundings, in case any human swordsmen or small blood demons approached. In the Blood Demon Realm, the enemies of swordsmen were small blood demons, but they could also be swordsmen. For the sake of benefits, everything else could be ignored. Although Chu Mu really wanted to see what was inside the bronze spatial wristband and the space inside, the most important thing right now was to recover. He had to recover his energy as soon as possible before he could proceed to the next step. Another 2 hours passed. Although his essence, energy, and spirit had not recovered to their peak, they were not far from it. They would not hinder Chu Mu's movements in any way. First, Chu Mu grabbed the long and narrow blood-red sword. As soon as he grabbed the hilt, the blood-red sword seemed to come alive. There was a blood-red light fluctuating on the sword, and at the same time, an evil force attacked Chu Mu's palm, trying to penetrate into his body. He channeled the sword aura to his palm and clashed with the evil power of the blood-red longsword, destroying it. However, the evil power regrouped and attacked again. Although he didn't know what would happen if this evil energy seeped into his body, it definitely wouldn't be anything good. He loosened his grip, and the blood-red sword fell to the ground. The evil power had lost its source and was completely destroyed by Chu Mu's sword chi. After staring at the blood-red sword for a while, Chu Mu withdrew his gaze and took out the bronze space wristband. Middle-grade space armlet. As he spoke, he cut his finger with his fingernail and squeezed out a drop of blood on the bronze space armlet. Guided by the blood, Chu Mu's spirit penetrated into the space armlet. "Junior, you killed my doppelganger and even tried to take my space armlet. Damn it!" A deafening roar was heard, and immediately a sharp light approached, trying to tear Chu Mu's spirit apart. Although surprised, Chu Mu did not panic. He condensed his spirit into a sword and slashed. Inside the bronze space armlet, the two spirit swords clashed with each other. It was neither flashy nor powerful, but it was extremely dangerous. If Chu Mu lost, his spirit would be damaged, and it would take a long time for him to recover. If Chu Mu won, his opponent's spirit would be damaged, and the middle-grade space armlet would belong to Chu Mu. Once a battle on the spirit level began, there was no way to retreat. Otherwise, one would be pursued, and the chances of being damaged would be greater. The root of spirit power was the soul. If the soul was strong enough, the spirit would be stronger. In the void, the two spirit swords clashed continuously, using the spirit swords to perform swordsmanship. Chu Mu's attainments as a swordsmanship master played a huge role once again, but his opponent's spirit sword was also very powerful. It was as if it had broken free from some kind of restraint and was performing to its heart's content. With a flash of light, Chu Mu's spirit sword split into two. He used his spirit to perform the dual sword technique, attacking left and right. His attack and defense were constantly changing. Dual swords again. His opponent was shocked and angry. Under Chu Mu's dual sword technique, he began to fall into a disadvantage. "Junior, I, Lord Bloodfury, will not let you go." Leaving behind a final threat, his opponent's spirit sword was shattered by Chu Mu and completely disappeared. At the same time, somewhere in the great Kuan dynasty, the blood-red figure sitting cross-legged trembled and unconsciously spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was slightly pale, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. "How dare you kill my Lord Bloodfury's doppelganger? Junior, No matter who you are, I will definitely find you and suck your blood, try to vent the hatred in my heart. A voice that made one's hair stand on end sounded. A terrifying blood-red aura swept out in all directions like a storm. Wherever it passed, the grass, trees, sand, and stones within a few thousand meters were all crushed into powder. Lord Blood Fury, holding the bronze space bracelet, Chu-Mu was deep in thought. So that sword-wielding blood demon was a doppelganger of Lord Blood Fury. How many doppelgangers like this were there? Most importantly, what realm was this Lord Blood Fury's cultivation base? Unable to figure it out, Chu-Mu put it aside for the time being. Following his spirit, his mind spread into the bronze space bracelet and carefully checked it. As expected, it was a middle-grade space bracelet. The internal space was 10 times larger than his black iron space bracelet. It was exactly 10 cubic meters. Within this 10 cubic meters of space, there were many things stored in an orderly manner. It was more convenient for Chu-Mu to check. The first thing that caught Chu-Mu's attention was a pile of irregular blood-red balls the size of longans. Those were blood demon nuclei. There are at least a few hundred of them. Chu-Mu was secretly surprised. After checking, he found a total of 930 blood demon nuclei. Not only were there 1-striped and 2-striped blood demon nuclei, but there were also 3-striped blood demon nuclei. There were even a few 4-striped blood demon nuclei. The 3-striped blood demon nuclei came from 3-striped small blood demons, while the 4-striped blood demon nuclei came from 4-striped small blood demons. With Chu-Mu's current strength, he could easily kill a 1-striped small blood demon. Dealing with a 2-striped small blood demon wouldn't be too difficult either. As for the 3-striped small blood demon, Chu-Mu didn't have much confidence. As for the 4-striped small blood demon, unless he used the prison-breaking sword, he would have to run as far away as possible. There are 10 4-striped blood demon nuclei, 80 3-striped blood demon nuclei, and more than 600 2-striped blood demon nuclei. The rest are all 1-striped blood demon nuclei. If I bring them back to the Sword Mansion, I can exchange them for hundreds of thousands of credits. In addition to the blood demon nuclei I obtained earlier, I still have time to continue hunting small blood demons. Maybe I can get 200,000 credits from this trip to the blood demon territory. Chu-Mu couldn't help but feel a little excited. In addition, a low-grade spatial bracelet is worth 1 million credits. Although I don't know how many mid-grade spatial bracelets are worth, they shouldn't be less than 5 million credits. If necessary, I can sell the low-grade spatial bracelet. Even if it's not worth 1 million credits, it should be worth at least a few 100,000 credits. After checking the blood demon nuclei, Chu-Mu continued to check the other things in the mid-grade spatial bracelet. A stone the size of an egg appeared in Chu-Mu's hand. The stone was light red, and its surface was very rough like a rock. It seemed to contain a strange evil power and was filled with an astonishing evil aura. When Chu-Mu held it in his hand, the evil aura rushed straight into his soul, making him bloodthirsty and crazy. His powerful soul force condensed into a sword and directly cut down the evil aura that rushed into his mind. It wasn't affected in the slightest. Is this the so-called blood evil stone? Chu-Mu thought to himself. There were 21 such stones in the spatial bracelet. Among them, 15 were the light red ones, 5 were the size of a goose egg, and 1 was the size of a dark red fist. The evil aura contained in the red stone was even more intense and astonishing. It was 2 or 3 times stronger than the light red stone. The evil aura contained in the dark red stone was even more terrifying. It was several times stronger than the red stone. Traces of blood-colored air currents could be seen jumping on the stone surface like electric arcs. When Chu-Mu swept his gaze over the dark red stone, he could feel that the terrifyingly dense evil aura would impact his soul and cause negative effects. If this is a blood evil stone, then I can get a lot of credits, Chumu thought to himself. According to the group mission, a low-grade blood evil stone could be exchanged for 50,000 credits, and a mid-grade blood evil stone could be exchanged for 500,000 credits. Although he wasn't very clear if this stone was really a blood evil stone, then the light red stone could very well be a low-grade one, the red stone could very well be a mid-grade one, and the dark red stone could very well be a high-grade one. In other words, 15 low-grade blood evil stones could be exchanged for 750,000 credits, and 5 mid-grade blood evil stones could be exchanged for 5 million credits. As for the high-grade blood evil stone, it was unknown how many credits it could be exchanged for. It should be at least in the millions. Within the mid-grade spatial bracelet, next to the blood evil stones, there was something that looked very much like a blood evil stone. However, when Chumu took one out and examined it carefully, he discovered that it wasn't a blood evil stone. Compared to a blood evil stone, this egg-sized object wasn't as rough and didn't have any evil aura surrounding it. When he held it in his hand, it felt warm and cool. It seemed a little soft, but when he squeezed it hard, he couldn't crush it. Could it be? A thought flashed through Chumu's mind. Blood essence. This object felt like it was condensed from countless drops of blood. If he carefully sensed it, he could feel the astonishing blood energy, fluctuations within. The mission mentioned the exchange of credits between blood evil stones and blood essences. A low-grade blood essence can be exchanged for 100,000 credits, and a mid-grade blood essence can be exchanged for 1 million credits. Its value is double that of a blood evil stone. Chumu sucked in a breath of cold air. There are a total of 6 blood essences in this spatial bracelet. 4 of them are light red, and the other 2 are pure red. Perhaps they are the so-called low-grade and mid-grade. If these were really blood evil stones and blood essences, Chumu could be considered to have reaped a great harvest this time. However, whether it was true or not, he would have to wait until he returned to the Sword Mansion to confirm. Apart from the blood demon core, blood evil stones, and blood essences, there were only 2 things in the entire spatial bracelet. These 2 things made Chumu's heart tremble. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 224. Something appeared in Chumu's hand. It was a red gourd the size of a palm. After opening it, a sweet and fishy smell wafted out. Inside the gourd was a red pill the size of a longan core rolling in his palm. It should be a pill similar to the scarlet blood pill, but the medicinal power it contains seems to be even stronger than that of the scarlet blood pill, Chumu said to himself. His powerful soul force allowed him to detect details that others could not. There were more than 20 pills in the gourd. Chumu put the stopper back into his space wristband and took out another item. This item was somewhat familiar to him, as if he had seen it somewhere before. Whether it was the patterns on it or the strange fluctuations, Chumu suddenly recalled the picture scroll in the secret chamber of the Chu family, the picture scroll of wind. Although I didn't gain anything from my second attempt at comprehending the picture scroll of wind, I received some vague information that there are 7 other pictures similar to the picture scroll of wind, Chumu said to himself. Could it be that this is one of the other 7? Chumu couldn't help but have this thought, because the item in his hand was too similar to the picture scroll of wind that he had seen before. Suddenly he had the urge to open it, but on second thought he restrained himself. If it was really something similar to the picture scroll of wind, once it was opened, fluctuations would definitely spread out. And Chumu might also enter a state similar to when he had comprehended the picture scroll of wind. In that state, he wouldn't know what was approaching him. The blood demon realm was not a safe place. It was not even safe. After putting the picture scroll of wind back into his space wristband, Chumu transferred all the blood demon cores, pills, and spirit stones from his low-grade space wristband into his middle-grade space wristband, and then stuffed the low-grade space wristband into his clothes. In fact, Putting the low-grade space wristband into the middle-grade space wristband was the best way to do it, and Chumu also wanted to do so. But that wouldn't work. Every space bracelet had an internal space. No matter how big or small it was an independent internal space. Once a space wristband was put into another space wristband, the internal space would reject it. The final result of the rejection would be the collapse of one of the internal spaces, which meant that the space wristband would be destroyed. That was what the book said. Chumu would not try to verify the authenticity of the statement. For him, whether it was a middle-grade or low-grade space bracelet, they were all very precious. It would be stupid to destroy any of them. Finally, Chumu picked up the long and narrow blood-red sword and put it into his space bracelet. According to Chumu's judgment, this blood-red sword should be a middle-grade sword. After tidying everything up, Chumu looked up into the distance and muttered to himself, "Next, I'll continue to hone my swordsmanship." The dim sword light pierced through the void. There was no blood splashing, but the chest of a two-striped blood demon was cut open. Its heart was pierced and minced. It died without even a scream. Swish, swish, swish. Every move seemed simple, and the sword light condensed on each sword was dimmer than before. However, its power was very amazing. Even the skin of the two-striped blood demon was not tough enough to resist. It was cut open and killed in one strike. Compared to before, Chumu's sword was more concise and fierce. The sharpness began to be restrained, and the momentum and fluctuations caused by the sword became weaker. The sword was a weapon of murder, and swordsmanship was the art of killing. This was the path that Chumu walked when he comprehended the path of a swordsmanship grandmaster. In the past, he did have the attainments of a swordsmanship grandmaster, but his real swordsmanship had not reached the level that a swordsmanship grandmaster should have. It was like a bucket that had reached a height of 1 meter, but the water inside had not reached a height of 1 meter. It had not reached its limit. Chumu had reached the level of a swordsmanship grandmaster on his own. In the absence of further progress and guidance, he had to figure out everything on his own. However, after reaching the level of a grandmaster, every bit of progress was very difficult, not to mention that he had to figure out everything on his own without any guidance. It was even more difficult after many life and death battles in the blood demon realm, during which he had slain countless little blood demons with his sword. He had been improving non-stop through the actual slaughtering, pouring water into the bucket. Now, Chumu had finally reached his current limit. Not only did he have the theoretical knowledge of a swordsmanship grandmaster, he also had the level of swordsmanship that a swordsmanship grandmaster should have. He knew everything about a swordsmanship grandmaster and was no longer limited to a corner like before. I have a feeling that I will make another breakthrough in my swordsmanship before the end of the blood demon realm, Chumu thought to himself. His eyes were glittering, and he was absolutely confident. On the dark red, boundless land, a person was running as if he were flying. With one step, he would cover 7 to 8 meters. With another step, he would cover another 7 to 8 meters. He was so fast that even the most agile cheetah could not compare to him. As the person flew past quickly, the air was filled with the smell of blood. There was also a murderous aura spreading out, which was left after killing too many little blood demons. 3 one-striped little blood demons appeared not far away. When they saw that it was a human, they were very excited and cried out in joy. But then they sensed the terrifying murderous aura around the human, which seemed to be filled with the resentment of many little blood demons before they died. They wailed and cried out in pain. The 3 one-striped little blood demons came to a halt. They were extremely frightened. They hurriedly flapped the small wings on their backs and turned around to flee. Although they were very ferocious, the murderous aura emanating from the human told them that at least hundreds of little blood demons had died by his sword. It was enough to scare them out of their wits. The person who was running away also noticed the 3 one-striped little blood demons that had turned around. A blood-red light flashed in his eyes. He slightly adjusted his direction and suddenly increased his speed, like a gust of wind. With a swoosh, the dark green sword light swept across the sky like a meteor. The sword light flashed and turned into 3 dark green cold stars. Each of them carried a wisp of innate sword chi. They pierced through the backs of the 3 one-striped little blood demons and strangled them to death. The figure flew past. Before the 3 one-striped little blood demons fell to the ground, he flicked his sword, and 3 blood demon cores immediately flew up. His left hand stroked the air, and the 3 blood demon cores disappeared. The figure left, and the corpses of the 3 one-striped little blood demons fell to the ground and rapidly shriveled up. Chu Mu's use of the wind concept was becoming smoother and smoother. He only used 20% of the wind concept to perform the gust of wind, and only consumed a little of his own sword chi. He was able to maintain such a high speed and fly for a long time. He killed any 1-striped or 2-striped little blood demons he encountered during his flight. Right now, compared to before I entered the blood demon realm, although my cultivation hasn't improved, my overall strength is a lot stronger, thought Chumu. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chijin. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 225. The 6 small blood devils roared and surrounded the 6 human swordsmen. The 6 human swordsmen faced the blood devils back to back, holding swords in their hands. The 6 small blood devils were all 1-vein and 2-vein blood devils. 4 of the 6 swordsmen were at the entry level of Chi, and 2 were at the initial level of Chi. In terms of strength and numbers, the small blood devils were on par with the human swordsmen. Chuha, attack that small blood devil. Try your best to stop it from coming closer. Su Jianfeng, attack that small blood devil. Try your best to stop it from coming closer. One of the swordsmen who had reached the initial level of Chi commanded calmly. You too, try your best to stop the small blood devils from coming closer. You and I will attack together. We must kill this 2-vein blood devil with 1 strike. The battle began again. The small blood devils were extremely fierce. They roared and pounced, leaving cold marks in the air with their bloody claws. The 6 human swordsmen were not to be trifled with either. They cooperated with each other to fight the small blood devils. The small blood devils had extremely strong vitality. They could not be killed without destroying their hearts. However, they did not have much intelligence. They only knew how to charge and kill based on instinct. The human swordsmen did not have the terrifying vitality of the small blood devils. Once they were scratched by a small blood devil, they would bleed nonstop. However, they had sword chi, swordsmanship, and intelligence. As long as they used it properly, they could fight and even kill the small blood devils. However, it was very difficult for the 6 of them to kill the 6 small blood devils. Damn it, I've been scratched. One of the swordsmen roared in shock and anger. Hurry up and use the golden healing pill and scarlet blood pill to shrink the wound and replenish the blood loss. Another swordsman said hurriedly. No, the scarlet blood pill can't produce blood faster than the blood loss. The swordsman roared. He felt his condition weakening bit by bit. His limbs started to feel weak. That was a sign that he had lost too much blood. After being scratched by a small blood devil, the wound could not heal in a short period of time. Even the golden healing pill could only heal a part of it. Unless they used a pill of a higher level, they could only endure it. However, it was clear that the blood loss was too fast, and the scarlet blood pill's replenishment simply couldn't keep up. The smell of fresh blood stimulated the small blood demons to become even crazier. They charged forward fearlessly. Soon, 2 swordsmen were killed by the small blood devils, while the human swordsmen also killed 2 small blood devils. Are we going to die here? Chu He and Su Jianfeng were extremely unwilling to give up. It had not been easy for them to enter the Sword Manor's inner mansion for further training. This time they had entered the Blood Demon realm in hopes of obtaining Blood Demon cores and other items to exchange for credits, so that they could exchange them for a sword technique they had taken a fancy to. However, the Blood Demon realm was more dangerous than they had imagined. There had been 12 of them in the team, but now only 6 of them were left. The other 6 had all been killed by the little Blood Demon, and their blood had been sucked dry by the little Blood Demon. Now, 2 more people had been sucked dry by a 2-striped Blood Demon and died. There was only 1 2-striped Blood Demon and 3 1-striped Blood Demons left. On Chuhi's side, there was only 1 initial success swordsman and 3 novice swordsmen left. After the 2-striped Blood Demon had absorbed the blood of a novice swordsman and a novice swordsman, a bloody light swam all over its body. Its killing intent was even fiercer than a human's. 4 against 4. Raise your confidence. We can definitely kill them all. The last swordsman of the initial success swordsman took a deep breath. However, he himself did not have much confidence. In a one-on-one battle between a small Blood Demon and a human swordsman of the same level, unless the swordsman's sword technique was extremely exquisite and could destroy the small Blood Demon's heart as quickly as possible, the human swordsman would most likely die in the long battle. However, there were very few swordsmen who could pierce the small Blood Demon's heart with one strike. The battle began again. The 2-striped Blood Demon that had absorbed the blood of 2 swordsmen was abnormally strong. Not only was it faster, but it was also more powerful than before. After a bloody battle, another entry-level Chi swordsman was caught by the 2-striped Blood Demon and sent flying backwards. Its fangs pierced deeply into the entry-level Chi swordsman's neck, sucking his blood dry as he struggled. Suddenly, a terrifying force erupted from the 2-striped Blood Demon's body. Everyone heard a loud, drum-like sound. The left side of the 2-striped Blood Demon's chest suddenly protruded. It was as if its heart was beating so violently that it was about to burst out of its chest. Then, a terrifying killing intent exploded from the 2-striped Blood Demon's body. It spread out in all directions and created a storm. The 3 1-striped Blood Demons retreated in fear. However, the 2-striped Blood Demon flashed past them and crushed their heads. It took out their Blood Demon cores and threw them into its mouth. This small Blood Demon. The remaining 3 swordsmen widened their eyes and retreated. Their instincts told them that the small Blood Demon before them was undergoing some terrifying transformation. Run! The novice swordsman shouted and hurriedly retreated. Chu He and Su Jianfeng also retreated quickly. If they didn't leave now, when would they? At the same time, the 2-striped little Blood Demon's body suddenly swelled, and the sound of flesh tearing could be heard. The little Blood Demon, who was originally only 2 to 1, 3 meters tall, suddenly grew to 6 to 1, 7 meters tall. Its originally thin and weak body also swelled with muscles, and one could tell at a glance that it contained an astonishing amount of power. The originally thin and weak Blood Demon had now transformed into a strong and powerful Blood Demon, Mr. Bodybuilder. Mutation. A 2-striped mutated Blood Demon was equivalent to an ordinary 3-striped Blood Demon. The wings on its back flapped, and it took a step forward. The mutated Blood Demon was extremely fast. It turned into a blood-red bolt of lightning and rushed toward Chu He and the other 2. Kill it! The novice swordsman looked back and saw the speed of the small Blood Demon. He knew that the 3 of them couldn't escape at all. He turned around and shouted. Only by killing the small Blood Demon could they be safe. Chu He and Su Jianfeng also understood this. The 3 of them slashed out innate sword chi like a tornado. At this time, they couldn't hold back their sword chi anymore. Puff! 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 The Xiantian sword chi slashed at the 2-striped, mutated Blood Fiend's body, but only left a faint mark on its skin that disappeared in the blink of an eye. unable to cause any harm to it. The small blood demon flew over and opened its sharp claws. Its speed was unbelievably fast. It tore through the air and grabbed at the novice swordsman. It was too fast for him to react. Under the claw, no matter how hard he tried to block it, he couldn't. His chest was directly torn open. The huge force sent him flying backward. Blood spurted out like a fountain. The swordsman's chest had 3 deep wounds that stretched across his entire chest. He couldn't get up after landing. His limbs twitched, and he struggled. Death was only a matter of time. Chu He and Su Jianfeng's faces turned pale. Even a swordsman who had achieved initial success in qi transformation could not block the claws of this terrifying little blood demon. With their strength, only death awaited them if they faced this little blood demon. Human, be obedient and offer your blood. The mutated blood demon felt very good. This feeling of great power made it very satisfied. Chu He and Su Jianfeng looked at each other. Their expressions became determined. They couldn't escape. They could only fight. Even if they couldn't, they had to fight. At this moment, a strong, murderous aura spread over from afar. Then, the sound of wind breaking rang out, and a figure flew over. The small blood demon, Chu He and Su Jianfeng all noticed the newcomer and looked over at the same time. Two-stripe, small blood demon. I'll use you to test my current strength. Chu Mu's eyes flashed. Earlier, he and Liang Haishan were exhausted from running away from a 4-stripe, small blood demon. In the end, if Han Ruoshua hadn't appeared and killed the small blood demon in 3 moves, Chu Mu would have died under its sharp claws, and his blood would have been sucked dry. Now he encountered another, small blood demon. It was 2-stripe, small blood demon, which was equivalent to an ordinary 3-stripe, small blood demon. Chu Mu was not afraid. I've already figured out my path to become a swordsmanship master. I've also completely grasped the theories and swordsmanship attainments of a swordsmanship master. Now, I'm at the peak of the beginner level of swordsmanship master. I'm only 1 step away from the small success level. Chu Mu said to himself as he sped up. His essence, qi, and spirit condensed into one. He clenched the sword in his hand. Now, I've comprehended the small success level of swordsmanship master. 2-stripe, small blood demon. I'll use your life as a sacrifice to the level I've comprehended and the new sword move I've mastered. More than 30 meters away, Chu Mu drew his sword. The sword moved along with his straight body and pierced through the void in a straight line. The attack was aimed at the heart of the mutated blood demon. As the sword pierced out, countless sword light flashed. The countless sword light condensed into one in an instant and condensed on the Qingfeng sword. The sword light was so dazzling that no one dared to look directly at it. In a flash, the dazzling sword light became less dazzling. It was just a little dazzling. At this moment, the sword was less than 10 meters away from the small blood demon's heart. The dazzling sword light quickly dimmed like a light bulb that had been turned off. The dazzling sword light became dim. Chu He and Su Jianfeng could now look directly at it. They suddenly felt their hair stand on end. The dim sword light was even more terrifying than the dazzling sword light. 1 meter. The dim sword light was completely silent. It became dark, deep, and extremely condensed. The small blood demon felt a great threat. It tore the sky apart with its claws. The sky was filled with claw shadows that surged toward Chu Mu, as if they wanted to tear Chu Mu into countless pieces of flesh and blood. However, under the dim sword, the innate sword qi surged. The claw shadows burst like bubbles and disappeared. The sword pierced straight into the small blood demon's extremely tough skin and went straight for its heart. The innate sword qi burst forth and strangled it. The 2-striped small blood demon's strong heart was instantly crushed by the innate sword qi. Its entire body lost its vitality and died. The sword light was dim, but its power was terrifying. It was a fatal blow. The two-striped, small blood demon was dead. Chu He and Su Jianfeng were saved. When they saw the person who had come, they were overwhelmed with shock and could not suppress the palpitations in their hearts. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qijian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 226. Is he really Chu Mu? Is he really the disciple from the Li Province Sword Academy, who is only at the peak of the 10th stage? That's right, he's really Chu Mu. I didn't expect this. Not long ago, we could kill an ant with a casual swing of the sword. In the blink of an eye, he surpassed us without us noticing. Now, if he wants to kill us, he can probably kill us with a casual swing of the sword. What an unimaginable swing of the sword! No matter what, he's still a member of the Chu family. It's your family's fortune to have such a freak like him. Su Jianfeng was extremely emotional. A person like him shouldn't be feeling this way, but everything was just too shocking. Chu He's cheeks twitched a few times. Compared to Su Jianfeng, he felt even more complicated. Not only was he shocked, but even he couldn't describe what he was feeling. He was originally the number one in the Chu family. He had been known as a genius since he was young. With the halo of a genius, he had even entered a high-grade sword sect as a disciple and quickly stood out. Compared to him, Chu Mu was like a loach in a river and a flood dragon that could overturn rivers and seas. He was already very surprised to see Chu Mu at the Li Province Sword Academy, not to mention that Chu Mu had been able to enter the Sword Mansion as one of the top 100 in the Sword Academy. Before entering the Blood Demon realm, when he saw Chu Mu again, he was shocked. It turned out that Chu Mu had already entered the inner mansion. Now he had been saved by Chu Mu. He had seen the terrifying blood demon that could kill a swordsman at the initial success stage of the Qi transformation realm with one claw, but Chu Mu had killed it with one swing of the sword. That kind of shock could no longer be described with words. At that moment, he felt as if his heart was about to stop beating. The blood demon core of a two-striped, mutated blood demon is different from that of an ordinary two-striped blood demon. Chu Mu pinched a blood demon core in his fingers. There were also 2 lines on it, but an ordinary blood demon core was red, while this mutated blood demon core was dark red. The blood power contained within was even more obscure and majestic. After storing the blood demon core into his space bracelet, Chu Mu pondered over the dark sword. When it comes to swordsmanship, a swordsmanship apprentice only grasps the basic swordsmanship and practices it to a proficient level. On the other hand, a swordsman cultivates the basic swordsmanship to the point where it's almost instinctive and wields the sword as if it's his own arm. When you become a true sword master, you will be able to wield the sword light. In the beginning, the sword light doesn't have much power. It can only affect the opponent's vision and make them misjudge. The improvement after using the sword light is to gather the sword light on the sword, which will slightly increase the power of the sword. Although it is not very obvious, the gathered sword light will be very dazzling. In an instant, it will cause the opponent to be unable to look straight at it, thus seizing the initiative. After the improvement, the sword light will no longer be dazzling. It will only be somewhat dazzling and will no longer affect the opponent's vision. However, the power of the sword will be significantly increased by at least 10% because of the gathering of the dazzling sword light. After that, the sword light will no longer be dazzling or dazzling. It will even become somewhat dim. At this time, the power of the sword will be increased by at least 20% because of the dim sword light. After the dim sword light, the sword light will be more condensed and restrained. It will become dark and profound. The dim sword light will increase the power of the sword by 30%, which will be more obvious. After the slaughter in the blood demon territory, I have finally understood the essence of being a sword master. I can now divide the sword light into several levels. Sword light, gathering light, condensing light, and dim light. They correspond to the sword light produced when the sword light is gathered on the sword. The sword light will become condensed and dazzling. The sword light will become dim, and the sword light will become dark and profound. The 5 levels, one after another, represent the improvement of one's swordsmanship. It is a very straightforward way to divide them. The sword light, gathering light, and condensing light are at the level of sword master, while the dim light and dim light are at the level of sword master. The dim light belongs to the entry level of sword master, while the dim light belongs to the initial level of sword master. After a period of slaughter, I have understood the essence of being a sword master. After summing up all my understandings, I can perform the dim sword and reach the level of dim light. Now, my swordsmanship is at the initial level of sword master. However, I have just stepped into the threshold of the initial level of sword master. When I can perform the dim light casually without any prelude, it means that I am firmly in the initial level of sword master and qualified to become a sword master, Desheng. If I can completely master the dim sword and integrate it into every sword move, the power of the sword moves will be significantly improved. If my division is correct, then after the dim light, there should be no light. It's not really no light, but all of the sword light is restrained and extremely condensed on the sword. Because it's too condensed, there's no sword light leaking out. It looks like there's no light. I have to continue to work hard. Chumu looked into the distance. His gaze became incomparably resolute, and a sharp glint shot out. A dazzling sword light flickered. It became bright, then dim, and finally dark and deep. The sword, mixed with a wisp of innate sword chi, directly broke the left chest of a 3-striped blood demon and crushed its heart. The little 3-striped blood demon died without even a scream. Not enough. Chu Mu shook off the blood on the tip of his sword and frowned slightly. When Chu Mu killed the 2-mark mutated small blood demon, he started from the sword light, went through the gathering light, condensing light, and dark light before finally entering the serene light. Although the speed was extremely fast, only a short 1 or 2 breaths of time, it still required a process. The blood demon did not have much intelligence and was not afraid of death. Therefore, it could not judge the situation and make the most correct response like a human swordsman. If the sword was aimed at a human swordsman, he would most likely have to dodge. A few breaths was enough for an expert. Therefore, Chu Mu tried his best to perform the dim sword perfectly and save the previous process. After killing more than a dozen blood demons, Chu Mu finally saved the first step. But there were still 3 steps that he had to skip. Kill, kill, kill. Killing intent surrounded Chu Mu. The traces of red made him look extremely ferocious, like an Asura. His sword was the Asura's sword, killing everything. One by one, the blood demons died under Chu Mu's sword. Until now, Chu Mu did not know how many blood demons he had killed. Maybe 50, maybe 100, maybe 200, maybe more. The number of blood demon nuclei in the space bracelet kept increasing. The credits that Chu Mu could exchange for were also increasing. The efficiency of killing was extremely high, and the effect was excellent. Whether it was a 1-striped or 2-striped blood demon, they could no longer pose any threat to Chu Mu. Even a 3-striped blood demon would become a ghost under Chu Mu's sword if it was alone. Blood demons were really a very strange life form. One could think of them as very strong or very weak. Even if one's strength was not as strong as theirs, as long as one could avoid their attacks or break their tough skin before they attacked, as long as one could hit their heart, their only weakness, they would be very weak. On the other hand, if one could not break their skin and hit their heart, their only weakness, as soon as one was scratched, even if one's strength was higher than the blood demons, death would be the only outcome. Chu Mu never killed 4-striped or 5-striped blood demons. Once he saw one from a distance, he would make a prompt decision to turn around and run, never giving the other party a chance to do so. This was because Chu Mu had encountered a lone 4-mark, small blood demon before. He discovered that although his vision sword was able to clearly capture the opponent's rapid movements, and was able to capture its trajectory to strike the left side of its chest. The gloomy sword wrapped in innate sword aura was unable to break through the 4-mark small blood demon's skin defense, let alone shatter its heart. Unless Chu Mu had a middle-grade sword, perhaps only with the sharpness of a middle-grade sword could he break it. Otherwise, he would have to use the prison-breaking sword. The prison-breaking sword consumed too much energy, so Chu Mu could only use it as a trump card instead of a regular method. Perhaps one day he would be able to use the prison-breaking sword casually, but not now. Involuntarily, Chu Mu recalled Han Ruoshiwe's stunning sword move, which was full of charm. The combination of the snow essence and the minor success, sword momentum. Logically speaking, Han Ruoshiwe's soul power could not be higher than Chu Mu's. However, after using that sword move, she did not seem as weak as Chu Mu. From this point, it could be seen that Han Ruoshiwe's application of sword momentum was above Chu Mu's. In addition, her cultivation realm and other aspects were higher than Chu Mu's. This also allowed Chu Mu to see the infinite possibilities of the development of sword momentum. Shaking his head slightly, Chu Mu suddenly felt that what he had learned was too complicated. Compared to other swordsmen, Chu Mu was involved in too many aspects that needed to be improved. Not to mention other aspects. Just the 3 essences of swordsmen had already surpassed many people. Moreover, he still needed to comprehend sword momentum. Not only did he need to comprehend it, but he also needed to know how to apply it after comprehending it. Only then could he achieve the greatest effect with the least consumption. At this moment, Chu Mu wished that he could master the doppelganger technique and split himself into 2 and 3 so that each of them could comprehend different things. Maybe in the future, I will have to make some choices, but not now. Chu Mu's eyes turned deep. Right now, I need to do my best to improve my strength on the right path. I can't let go of any of them. Only when I am strong and profound enough can I comprehend the ultimate essence and truly understand the path of choice. Time flew by quickly. Before he knew it, 30 days had passed. At this moment, Chu Mu was killing a 2-striped blood demon. Before, he could pick out the blood demon core of the 2-striped blood demon. A powerful force of the heavens and the earth instantly enveloped Chu Mu. Before Chu Mu could react, he felt that the world was spinning out of his control. At the same time, in other parts of the blood demon territory, the other human swordsmen who were still alive were enveloped by the powerful and irresistible force of the heavens and the earth. In the next moment, their figures flashed and they disappeared. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qijin. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 227. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. At the foot of a mountain outside the great Kuin sword residence, balls of light flickered. One figure after another appeared out of thin air. Soon, there were more than 1,000 of them. We're out. Many people had blank looks on their faces. This is no longer the blood demon realm. This is the sword residence. This is the foot of the mountain outside the inner residence. Someone reacted and immediately shouted. Everyone came to their senses and realized that they had unknowingly left the blood demon realm and returned to the foot of the mountain outside the inner residence. It was also the place where they had entered the blood demon realm. I remember now. There seems to be a record in the ancient books. The blood demon realm is a very magical void realm. It is different from other void realms. The time it opens is not fixed, but it can only be entered for a month at a time. Once the time is up, the blood demon realm will repel you and send you back to the place where you entered the blood demon realm, someone said in realization. The others nodded and said that they had read or heard of such a saying. They had just forgotten about it for a while. Chu Mu was also teleported out. He quickly came to his senses and looked around. Only then did he realize where he was. He could not help but be surprised by the wonders of the blood demon realm. At the same time, he glanced around and saw Han Ruoshiwa not far away. The people who were teleported out all had traces of killing intent. However, these killing intents were like rootless duckweed and smoke, quickly fading away. Chu Mu! A shout sounded. A figure quickly moved and appeared beside Chu Mu. I knew you were still alive. I'm glad you're alive too. Chu Mu looked at Lian Haishan and smiled. Lian Haishan looked rather miserable. However, it was already very good that he could survive in a place like the Blood Demon Realm. No matter how miserable he looked, it was still acceptable. Fortunately, I ran into senior brother Situko's team. Otherwise, I wouldn't have survived. Lian Haishan smiled. Then he asked curiously, how did you escape the pursuit of that four-stripe, mutated little blood demon? I was lucky enough to be saved, Chu Mu said with a smile. He did not say who saved him. Saved? Lian Haishan was stunned. His mind raced as if he was trying to figure out who had the ability to kill the four-stripe, mutated little blood demon. Could it be? Before he could say anything, someone beside him yelled anxiously, Let's go to the 100 Affair Hall. I got dozens of blood demon cores this time. They can be exchanged for thousands of credits. Only a few dozen. I got more than 100. I can exchange them for more than 10,000 credits. Let's go, Chu Mu said. All right. Lian Haishan nodded as he came to a realization. As they walked towards Astral Nine's 100 Affair Hall, Chu Mu looked at the people around him. There weren't as many people as there had been before they'd entered. At least half of them were gone. In other words, of the thousands of students who had entered the Blood Demon Realm, more than 1,000 had died. This was probably the first time in many years that the Inner Academy had suffered such a loss. However, the path of a swordsman was filled with life and death. It was a mixture of blood and fire. Death was not uncommon. The remaining 1,000 or so students were divided into the 10 academies of the Inner Academy. On average, each academy only had 100 or 200 people. More than 100 people rushed towards Astral Nine's 100 Affair Hall. It's Senior Han. Senior Han, after you. Dressed in white, Han Ruashua's expression was cold. She stood at the front and handed over the blood demon cores to the 100 Affair Hall's deacons. The 100 Affair Hall had sent 3 deacons to count the blood demon cores. Han Ruashua did not say a word as she continuously took out blood demon cores from her low-grade spatial bracelet. The 3 deacons began counting the blood demon cores as she took them out. Chu Mu noticed that Han Ruashua was wearing a black, iron-colored spatial bracelet on each of her hands. 131 striped blood demon cores, 262 striped blood demon cores, 373 striped blood demon cores. After the deacon's announcement, Han Ruashua's expression was still cold. However, the students behind her all began to exclaim, as expected of Senior Han. She's ranked 53rd on the bronze sword list. 284 striped blood demon cores, 32 5-striped blood demon cores, and 1 4-striped mutated blood demon core. Han Ruashua, are you sure you want to exchange all of these blood demon cores for credits? The deacon confirmed. Yes. Han Ruashua nodded. These blood demon cores will give you a total of 39,000 credits. Because a mutated blood demon core is 10 times more valuable than an ordinary blood demon core, a 4-striped mutated blood demon core is 10 times more valuable than an ordinary 5-striped blood demon core, said the deacon. He took Han Ruashua's identity, sword token, and transferred 39,000 credits to her. Han Ruashua put away her identity token and turned to leave, leaving behind countless exclamations and adoration. There's actually 39,000 credits. Chu Mu was also shocked, but when he thought about Han Ruashua's terrifying strength, he understood. If he had that kind of strength, he could have done even better. After Han Ruashua left, a second person immediately walked to the table and quickly placed the bag on his back on the table. This time, most of the Inner Palace students who had entered the Blood Demon realm were at the initial stages of the Qi transformation realm. A few of them were Deshang, and there were very few students who had completed the Qi transformation realm. In all of Astral 9, aside from Han Ruoxue, there were only 3 or 4 who had completed the Qi transformation realm. However, aside from Han Ruoxue, the few students who had completed the Qi transformation realm had only received a few 100,000 credits, which was less than 200,000. Chu Mu, how many blood demon cores did you get? Lian Haishan suddenly asked. Not that many, Chu Mu replied. I didn't get that many either. Less than 100, Lian Haishan said. With your strength, you should have gotten more than me. Chu Mu smiled, but didn't give a specific number. Even now, he didn't know how many blood demon cores he had in his spatial bracelet. Some students didn't leave after exchanging their credits, but instead stood to the side and watched. One student after another exchanged their credits, and after a few dozen, it was finally Lian Haishan's turn. Lian Haishan looked excited. He placed the bag on the table and opened it, revealing the blood demon cores to the attendants. 83 one-striped blood demon cores and 36 two-striped blood demon cores. Do you want to exchange them all? The attendant asked after checking. Yes, I'll exchange them all. Lian Haishan nodded vigorously. Why would he keep them if he didn't exchange them? That's a total of 15,500 credits, the attendant said. 15,500 credits. Not bad. It can be considered as credits that can only be obtained after 1 year and 3 months. Lian Haishan turned and walked to Chu Mu's side. He smiled and said, Most importantly, in the blood demon realm, my swordsmanship improved by leaps and bounds because of your guidance. If I were to fight Zhuang Tong with pure swordsmanship now, I'd definitely be able to defeat him within 100 moves. Chu Mu nodded and walked to the table. It was his turn now. He took out the blood demon cores from the spatial bracelet on his left wrist. He has a spatial bracelet. Immediately, a low cry came from behind and beside him. A Qi transformation stage student actually has a spatial bracelet. How incredible! After a month of slaughter in the blood demon realm, Chu Mu's Xiantian sword Qi had stabilized. Although he hadn't cultivated any profound level techniques, no one thought that Chu Mu was just a rookie who had just entered the Qi transformation stage. Indeed, blood and fire were the best ways for a swordsman to grow. A Qi transformation stage student has a spatial bracelet. This person must have a powerful background. We can't afford to offend him, someone thought. A Qi transformation stage student has a spatial bracelet. Why doesn't Deshang have a spatial bracelet now that I'm a Qi transformation stage student? I must find a way to make his spatial bracelet mine. Someone else thought. The 3 attendants in front of Chu Mu were stunned. They couldn't hide the shock in their eyes because what they saw was different from what the other students saw. Although the other students knew that Chu Mu had a spatial wristband, it was covered by his sleeves, and they thought it was a low-rank spatial wristband. However, the 3 attendants saw that it wasn't a low-rank spatial wristband. The color was a middle-rank spatial wristband. A Qi transformation stage student who had a low-grade spatial bracelet could be said to have a powerful background. However, a mid-grade spatial bracelet couldn't be explained by a powerful background. They were used to seeing many members of the royal family. It was already amazing for a Qi transformation stage student to have a low-grade spatial bracelet. Chu Mu ignored them and continued to take out blood demon nuclei from his spatial bracelet. He also wanted to know how many blood demon nuclei he had. The 3 attendants looked at each other and were shocked again. They hurriedly counted. The spectating students were also shocked. This is not a lot. Lian Haishan smiled bitterly. Up until now, Chu Mu had taken out more than 300 blood demon nuclei. It seemed that he was still taking out more. It's already more than 500, right? Even if they're all one-stripe blood demon nuclei, This is still too many. Compared to him, I'm just a piece of trash. No more, Chu-Mu said indifferently as he stopped. However, there was already a large pile of blood demon nuclei in front of him. 751 stripe blood demon nuclei, 922 stripe blood demon nuclei, 163 stripe blood demon nuclei, 10 4-stripe blood demon nuclei, and 1 2-stripe mutated blood demon nucleus. As the attendant spoke, he felt that his mouth was very dry. The nearby students were all dumbfounded. Although there were no 5-stripe blood demon nuclei, there were so many 1-stripe and 2-stripe blood demon nuclei that it was far more than the others. Even senior Sister Han couldn't compare. Are you sure you want to exchange them all for credits? The attendant asked again. He couldn't hide the surprise on his face. Yes, Chu-Mu nodded. If you exchange all these blood demon nuclei, you'll get a total of 314,000 credits. The attendant swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said with difficulty, 314,000 credits. The students were all at a loss. Wasn't this number even higher than Senior Sister Han's? Given Senior Sister Han's strength, it was normal for her to get more than 300,000 credits. However, was it normal for a Chi transformation swordsman to get so many credits, even more than Senior Sister Han? Whether it was normal or not, Chu-Mu's 314,000 credits were beyond his expectations. With these credits, not only could he exchange them for the 9 Revolutions Heavenly Prime, but he could also look at other things. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote for it at Chijian. Come, your support is my greatest motivation.